the full-time mage. The extreme lightning. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 526, Return to Egypt. Well, after listening to what Apis said, it seems to make sense. There is no other way. If there is no reason, he has to force his way in. In his current state, can he force his way in? It is not realistic. I'm afraid that I will die without knowing how. Moreover, it was just a movement before, and it may not be that the big boss of this desert is really going to move out. If he really wants to move out to deal with me, what can he do? Even if he runs out of this desert, the current situation of the human world may not be able to stop a world-class peerless demon. He was also a little scared just now, thinking carefully, if he can really take a small superclass magician like me seriously, then what can he do? Even if he flies at full speed to escape, can he really escape the hands of the demon god, one of the world's top combat powers? Well, let's rest here. Apis snorted and then said, "You rest here by yourself. I'm going back to the contract space. Just go straight in this direction on the way back. Also, don't disturb me during this time." After saying that, regardless of whether Tang Mao agreed or not, he went back to the contract space directly. Tang Mao was slightly stunned. Without Apis, wouldn't he be bored to death in the next few days? Question mark? After all, he also prepared fresh pure milk for Apis, and he didn't feed her today. Well, although it is necessary to provide her with growth, it is also very important to let her recover her strength. So, he could only choose to bear it alone. After setting up the tent, Tang Mao began to rest. This trip to the desert was really exhausting. Apis, Snow Girl, and Little Flame Princess were all seriously injured. With new injuries and old illnesses, they might not be able to fully recover every month. Of course, after Tang Mao was ready to leave this desert, he would go to the Parthenon first. Although many people there clearly expressed that they did not welcome him, Asheruia and Yixingsha had successfully divided power in the last incident, so they both became candidates for the goddess of Parthenon. With just the two of them, he would not be rejected at all. Parthenon's healing medicine is a real blood bottle and blue bottle. The speed of recovery is also quite fast. In order for the three of them to recover as soon as possible, this trip is naturally necessary. The sand and dust kept swaying. In this maze, or in this desert, the wind almost never stopped. It feels like the color here is almost the same every day. That is, gloomy. Of course, there is still a difference between day and night. As long as you pay attention, you can still see it clearly. He has been here for 3 days. This time, the consumption is obviously a bit large. Even though it has been 3 days, the magic power has not been fully restored. Fortunately, no demons have chased him for 3 days. It seems that he has been safe. The clan war in front still seems to have not stopped, but today the demonic energy has weakened a lot, and it seems that one side is about to lose. Once a clan with similar strength defeats another clan, the combat power will definitely surge. After all, this is the law of nature. So, he must leave today. But when he rushed in the direction that Apis said, he found that there were no living creatures on the ground except for some demon corpses. However, after a closer look, he found that it was the winner who drilled into the sand and dust. Tang Mao naturally would not pay attention to the demons under the sand and dust. Now he just wanted to leave here. The road was smooth and unobstructed. When he saw that the color of the sand was pure golden, Tang Mao knew that he had walked out of the maze. Looking at the maze behind, and the bits and pieces of the Sahara Desert, Tang Mao thought to himself that he would never come again in this life. Exclamation mark. This place is simply life-threatening. But sometimes, things are not absolute. The more he didn't want to come to a place, the more he had to come. But that's all for later. After leaving the desert maze, he summoned a silver rhino and headed towards Egypt from the Mediterranean coastline. He had been in the Sahara Desert for almost 2 months or even more than 2 months. He had to go back and see if Emofan and the others had come out. After all, this time they were accompanied by the 9 Nether Queen. It shouldn't be a difficult thing for them to open the door to the underworld. He had been away for so many days, so he should go and see their situation first, and then go to Greece together. If he wasn't there, they would be anxious. After all, he had said he would wait for them. Tang Mao kept on traveling, and after arriving in Egypt, he found that Mo Fan and the others hadn't come out yet. The hotel he lived in before was the VIP room opened by Zhao Manian, and they had paid attention to it. After seeing that they were not there, and there was no news about the appearance of Xiao Yuan recently, it was obvious that these guys hadn't come out yet, and he could only choose to wait. After all, he was also in their group. Otherwise, he could just leave. After all, whether it was Mo Fan, Zhao Manian, or Mu Bei, the three of them would have no objection at all. But if he didn't wait for Hidi, the little girl would definitely get mad when she came out. Now that so many bullets have been accumulated and have not been fired, he can't let this little ancestor be unhappy no matter what. After all, he hasn't experienced the huge rabbit enough. Immediately, he waited here. While waiting, he practiced meditation and even bought a lot of parts for Yanji, Zunu and Apis. In this way, another month passed unknowingly. During this month, the three of them finally recovered, and Apis, according to Tang Mao's instructions, severely blackmailed Ethan, who was used by him in Egypt, for a lot of resources. After getting the resources, Tang Mao felt that Mo Fan was really stupid. He also wanted to join in the fun of other people's countries' affairs. Wouldn't it be nice to get some benefits like this? What about Egypt? What does it have to do with him? China. Sure enough, the savior is the savior. The world cannot be saved. He did a lot of thankless things. After getting the resources supported by Ethan, Tang Mao shared them with the three of them. After all, the trip to the Sahara Desert was a hardship for them. Of course, after extorting the resources, Apis continued to retreat and recuperate. I don't know if it was real or fake. Anyway, he didn't give him any chance. Chapter 527 2 months. At this time, even Apis, Zhao Yanji, and Zunu have recovered. Moreover, because of Ethan's support resources during this period, Zunu has reached the monarch level of the middle realm. Moreover, Zhao Hei successfully absorbed the essence of the Dark Knight Tiger and successfully reached the monarch level. After all, it has been nearly 2 months. In the first month, he was bored with meditation, control, and meditation. And in the next month, Apis was forced to pull out well time passed unknowingly. Moreover, through the continuous milk every day and the help of special techniques, Apis has grown up a lot that night. Khafra's dark light was not as deep as usual. The blue of the deep sea would be dyed into this color every night, always reminding people that this is an unusual night. Khafra is very close to the pyramid of Khufu. This time, the battlefield in Cairo was also provoked by Khafra, and the dark light naturally shot out from the Khafra pyramid. And tonight, at this time, the Khafra pyramid and Cairo have entered the third stage of the melee. When the Khafra pyramid shines the entire sky, suddenly a deeper light of the underworld appears. Its night light reaches the sky. Even Tang Mao, who is hundreds of kilometers away, can clearly see this extreme light beam standing. The light beam seems to be an ancient will. In the black universe, it suddenly awakens those special stars that are sleeping. These stars become particularly brilliant, and the unique light makes them visible to everyone in Cairo. More ancient stars awaken in the night sky. They seem to have a close connection with each other, and they seem to form an ancient unknown constellation between each other. When all the star marks related to Khufu are completely illuminated by that beam of dark light, this beam of dark light suddenly turns into a sunset red! Exclamation mark. The red color of the sunset instantly dyed the entire sky of Cairo. If you saw such a scene in the evening, you would just feel amazed, but this time it was in the middle of the night. The red color of the sunset was so weird that it made people feel that some doomsday demon was about to descend from another dimension. When the strange red color was seen, the entire city of Cairo immediately issued an order to block the city. And the moment the red color appeared, the ordinary people in Cairo were completely panicked. They clamored to leave here. After all, such a strange phenomenon brought more unknown panic to ordinary people. The underworld glow was still within their cognition. They knew that it was the oxygen for the creatures in the underworld to pass through. But what was this red color of the sunset? Could it be that something more terrifying was about to appear? This war has already caused heavy casualties. Entering the third stage, many military departments are somewhat powerless. The most desperate thing is still to come. In the fourth stage, those who died will wake up. If even the third stage makes the soldiers mentally collapse, won't half of Cairo fall in the fourth stage? In the past few months, this battle has not been as smooth as imagined. The undead are cruel and desperate. There are always not enough magicians in each station. If Cairo encountered such a big attack a few years ago, the international community would also send a lot of aid. Although most of them are hunters who come to pan for gold, magic students who come to experience, and volunteers from various countries who obey the dispatch, these people together are also a force that cannot be ignored. Unfortunately, the sea level of the world's oceans is rising. Most of the powerful countries are adjacent to the sea. They can hardly cope with the current situation themselves, let alone support other countries. So, after seeing this scene, who would be willing to stay here and wait for death? The military control here also constantly appeased in person, but unfortunately his appeasement was just a tough suppression, and there was no persuasiveness at all. But ordinary people are ordinary people. When the city encounters a crisis, no matter what their status is, or what forces are behind them, they must follow the military's arrangements. If they disobey, there is only one way. In fact, every country is like this. It's not that the soldiers are cold-blooded and ruthless, but they are fighting bloody battles in the front, and the ordinary people in the rear security world have to find all kinds of troubles. What can they do if they are not tough? After watching for a while, Tang Mao returned to the hotel. What he has to do now is to wait. The problem here in Egypt will no longer be a ghost for at least a few years. If it's a group of snakes and scorpions, they can still deal with it. After all, which country is not invaded by demons? If the pressure on one side can't stand, then Egypt can disappear from the world. And because of the opening of the gate to the underworld, Tang Mao asked Apis to pit Ethan again. After all, what they have to face next is only the demon of snakes and scorpions. Although Ethan also learned about some people from China opening the gate to the underworld, he himself thought it was a fairy tale. How could he believe it? At this time, Apis went to blackmail with her identity. What reason did Ethan have to disbelieve? The most important thing is that Apis's strength is not comparable to hers. Even if Apis was suppressed, as Tang Mao expected, Apis said that it was she who separated half of the snakes and scorpions to go to the underworld to hold back Khufu's undead army. After this statement, Ethan really believed it and provided Tang Mao with all the resources he wanted. Of course, this matter will be exposed after Mo Fan and the others come back. However, it's not now. Even if it is exposed, it doesn't matter. It was Ethan who moved the national resources. He obviously didn't dare to say it. As for revenge, if he had this strength, would he be willing to be a dog? Is it not good to be in front of people? Apis watched Tang Mao use the resources he defrauded to divide them to Zunu and Yanji, and even he had some, but he had nothing. Once or twice is fine, but 3 or 4 times is really too much. But her resistance had no effect. After all, Apis's original strength was already at the peak of the Great Monarch level, and now her power was suppressed. In this case, wouldn't it be a waste to give her resources? As for saving them, it was impossible to think about it. After all, they were in urgent need of resources right now, so how could they save them? Apis was speechless about this, and finally had to grit her teeth. In the dead of night, she used her sharp little tiger teeth to take revenge, to cut off her offspring. Of course, it was just a gesture. When she was anxious, she would do anything, but there was no substantial harm, just a simple warning not to mention. Since that time, Tang Mao really didn't treat her like before. There was no way. He was not the kind of man who could control himself, and this kind of thing was really hard to say. What if Apis really exploded that day? This bite, hiss, I really can't imagine it. Exclamation mark. However, in order to punish her for going too far, Tang Mao weaned her from that day on. Occasionally, she would just rub it when she needed it before Apis had time to be happy. She realized that this bastard had gone even further. She was sure that if this continued, once that little cover was broken, she would become a serious woman. The most excessive thing was that in this month, she always received some strange clothes from Tang Mao. except for the black and white silk stockings that she liked. Apis didn't like the rest of the white coats and professional suits at all. But what can you do? If you don't like it, you definitely can't not wear it. And for some reason tonight, Tang Mao actually found her some serious clothes and opened a room for her alone. Question mark? Apis felt that the sun might have risen from the west. Did this man suddenly become good? However, she would not investigate why, as she quite liked this kind of human life. How could Apis know that the end of Emo Fan's journey meant that Edie was coming back? Between eating and smelling, he would choose to eat. After all, he was a carnivore. Although Apis smelled good, he hadn't tasted meat for half a year. Besides, she couldn't run away. Of course, he had to comfort Edie. It was estimated that she had suffered a lot during her trip to the pyramid. As for Yanji and Zunu, he locked them up in the contract space to practice. Yanji didn't like to stay in the contract space all the time, and because there were no strangers, Zunu always liked to stay out. It wasn't really a big deal with Apis, so it was okay. But now that Edie was back, they naturally couldn't stay out all the time. Chapter 528 Become Stronger. After arranging everything, Edie and her group returned in the early morning of the next day. Looking at their appearance, it seems that this adventure has made a great improvement. After seeing Tang Mao, Edie was rarely as reserved as a Chinese woman, and ran over soft and bouncy. It was a critical hit right away. Tang Mao didn't even bother to pay attention to the three little brothers following behind him, and turned around with Edie, and a silver light flashed. Damn. Tang Mao, this bastard who has no humanity to the opposite sex. Doesn't he know to ask if we are injured or something? Zhao Manan cursed with envy after watching the two of them show off their skills so openly. Emo Fan nodded and said in agreement, I even broke an arm. Compared with the two complaining people, Liu Bei didn't seem to have much emotion. Speaking of which, he gained a lot from this trip to the pyramid. Moreover, he seemed to have found the threshold of the superclass. Perhaps, if he practices well and peacefully after returning, he can be promoted. However, despite their complaints, Emo Fan and Zhao Manan still walked into the hotel. After all, their lives these days were not very good. Moreover, they were still quite miserable. It was thanks to the help of the Queen of Nine Netherworld. Otherwise, this trip to the pyramid would have been a life or death experience. Zhao Manan even said that he would never enter such a ghost place again in his life. In the room, as soon as Edie came back, Tang Mao took her to review some yoga poses. However, it might be because she did not have a good rest in the pyramid for the past 6 months, so she only reviewed 4 poses and then fell asleep. Looking at Edie who fell asleep like this, Tang Mao felt helpless. After all, she fell down before he had enough fun. Tang Mao was about to continue regardless of life or death when he suddenly heard the phone ring. He had no choice but to take the phone. After the call was connected, the voice of the little Lalita who was far away in China came from it. Dead pig, have you read the report? Ling Ling's crisp little voice sounded particularly comfortable. It would have been better if she had called him by her own name and was a little more delicate. Isn't it that the evil spirit started to move? Even if Tang Mao didn't look at it, he could guess what she was calling about. Did you look at it? Ling Ling paused and then said, during the catastrophe of the ancient capital, it was proved that the evil spirit was not a random space drift. Now the evil spirit has drifted to Arabia, passing through Nepal, India, and Pakistan. Now these countries are reporting all over the sky, and they are asking the international community to explain this phenomenon. I didn't look at it, but I know that the ancient king took the evil spirit with him. Tang Mao did not hide anything and told Ling Ling everything that happened recently. What? Ling Ling exclaimed when she heard the wonderful experience of Tang Mao and his group. Don't worry, I can answer your call. Doesn't it prove that I'm fine? Hearing Ling Ling's exclamation, Tang Mao hurriedly comforted her. Who is worried about you, dead pig? You went to the Sahara Desert without me, and you didn't even tell me that they went to the pyramids. Ling Ling's dissatisfied voice soon came again. Obviously, whether it is the Egyptian pyramids or the world's forbidden Sahara Desert, Zhao Ling Ling is very interested. Unfortunately, this damn stinky man, not to mention not taking me, he didn't even mention me. It is conceivable how angry Zhao Ling Ling is at this time. Poor her. She is still studying with a group of younger brothers and sisters who have never left the ivory tower in the school. This is really a tragedy. Tang Mao's mouth twitched slightly. It seems that the little loli is not worried about herself at all, but blaming herself. Then, after accepting Ling Ling's scolding, she hung up the phone. Looking at the red light in the distance, Tang Mao sighed. Even the ancient king whose soul has not fully awakened can fly around the world with his base camp. If I were in the Sahara, if I really set foot in the Demon Empire, I would feel that 10 lives would not be enough to die. After all, as Shaoan moved forward, although there were some riots in various countries, which country could take practical actions to investigate and solve it? Let alone them. Even the feathered demons in the sky, which floated all the way from China, did not make any movement. You know, they are extremely protective of their air territory. But when facing extremely powerful creatures that make them feel suffocated, their dignity is nothing. Even demons are like this, let alone humans. Whether it is the Holy Court of Justice or the Magic Association of the 5 continents, these big forces can only give the world a perfunctory explanation in the end. But to put it bluntly, it's still the same sentence. How the ancient king makes a big fuss, or what big demons make a big fuss, it actually has nothing to do with me. After all, they are not in their own country, let alone their own territory. Immediately, Tang Mao turned over and lay down again. After all, Hedi still needs to be taken care of. Hedi was sleeping soundly. After being touched by Tang Mao, her little hand was weak and jerked, as if to express, no more playing, I want to sleep. Unfortunately, Tang Mao, who didn't understand much, just thought that Hedi wanted him to work harder to wake her up. After they came back, they rested in Cairo for a full 7 days. In fact, it didn't take that long, but Hedi didn't rest well every day. Even when she knew about Apis' existence, she ran to her residence to rest with her. And Zhao Manan also completed almost everything he couldn't do when he came to Cairo in these 7 days. Sure enough, after no longer seeing everything as snakes, his appetite was opened. But because of this sun thief has been weak recently, and Tang Mao also unknowingly discovered that he seemed to have become much stronger. In the past few days, I have been partying almost every night and I can't feel the same as before. ? In the hotel lobby, Zhao Manan watched Tang Mao walk out of Apis' room. He first looked down on her silently. Tang Mao actually picked up such a cute little lolly. Then he asked doubtfully, Boss Tang, do you have any magic medicine recently? Others may not know, but Zhao Manan, as a loyal leg pendant, knows very well. During the training, there were several times when Tang Mao was often despised by Jiang Hili. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 529 Night Attack. In response to Zhao Manan's question, Tang Mao just thought that he had noticed the change in his strength. So he replied, there is no magic medicine, just practice hard. Practice can also enhance this function. Zhao Manan was slightly stunned. Although magicians are originally stronger than ordinary people in this aspect, I have never heard of anyone who can be further enhanced. Isn't it still a matter of personal physique? Huh. Tang Mao paused, and then he understood what the bastard was referring to. He immediately said unhappily, this aspect varies from person to person. For someone like my brother who is naturally more protruding, 20 centimeters may be a length that he will never reach in his lifetime. Endurance has always been my motto. What kind of medicine is needed? Don't come on. Others don't know, but I know you. Zhao Manan smiled and said. But I really don't have any magic medicine. After going to the Sahara and breaking through the wind super level, I became stronger inexplicably. Tang Mao continued. What? Zhao Manan's mouth opened slightly. He looked at Tang Mao as if he was a monster. Went to the Sahara Desert? ? Human forbidden land. Moreover, he didn't die, and he also broke through a series of super level? ? Why are you so stupid? Seeing Zhao Manan's stunned look, Tang Mao was disdainful again. No, Boss Tang, what did you go to the Sahara Desert for? Isn't it a human forbidden land? Zeomanan was very puzzled and said, so you went there just to get promoted? Don't mention it, I regretted it after going to that damn place. Not to mention, I almost died there this time. I felt like I saw the top demon in this world. Although Tang Mao didn't see what the other party looked like, it didn't mean that he couldn't brag, right? Moreover, he had personally experienced the scene in the Sahara Desert, and his description was really not false at all. After hearing this, Zeomanan was glad that he was a fool like Mo fan who entered the pyramid. Although the pyramid was also very dangerous, compared with the Sahara Desert, it was obviously much safer for the pyramid, where only some monarchs moved around. In the Sahara Desert, there are not only many monarchs, but also even more terrifying emperor-level monsters. Sure enough, in this day and age, you have to follow the right person to commit suicide. One wrong step will lead to eternal damnation. With the return of Mo fan and others, Ethan was also directly robbed of his power. At this time, he realized that he was fooled like a clown. He wanted to find Apis. He wanted to get justice. After all, he had done too many things that had nothing to do with others. The most important thing was that he had given her a lot of the country's resources. If he was just robbed like this and didn't do anything, he might not be deprived of power, but would be killed. However, Ethan suddenly realized that he didn't know where Apis was. The Sunset Temple was not a place he could go whenever he wanted. It had always been Apis who contacted him. At this moment, he realized how stupid he was to believe in a monster? Ethan finally chose to run away. He was going to take advantage of the current war to escape Egypt. It must be said that this decision was indeed a wise choice. After all, there was only one way out, except to flee to the end of the world. Haken knew that Ethan's escape was after the end of this war. Moreover, the whole of Egypt had issued a bounty order internationally. As for why it was so expensive to find him, it was just because the resources he moved were the resources of the entire Cairo military for a quarter. Each soldier may not have much separately, but when put together, it is a sky-high price. There is a swimming pool made of tempered glass on the rooftop of the hotel. Tang Mao, who was enjoying the greatest victory at this time, did not know that Ethan had run away. At this time, he was enjoying the two girls in the blue swimming pool in front of him. One of them was a beautiful woman wearing a white bra and a small bikini pants with a drawstring, swimming in the clear and clean water. She had a thin waist and long legs. When she swung her body to dive, she looked like a little beauty snake full of temptation. The other one was wearing a blue bikini, and the way she swam was equally attractive. After swimming for a while, Hedy didn't seem to want to continue, and walked out of the water. Seeing Tang Mao staring at her, she rolled her eyes at him, as if she didn't want to care about him. The reason for this is naturally because last night, Tang Mao, that bastard, he actually attacked at night! Exclamation mark. And the most terrifying thing is that Apis is on the other side. Although the sound insulation effect is good, if she is discovered, wouldn't she be embarrassed? What Hedy didn't know was that when Tang Mao attacked her at night, Apis had already been poisoned. Don't be angry, look how honest I am today. The girl was angry, and she had to be coaxed. After all, she hadn't had enough fun this year. How could she ignore it? His beautiful eyes glared, and then whispered, if you do this again, I will never talk to you again. Tang Mao thought to himself, you may have to beg me in the future. But he still responded, don't worry, I will definitely not do it in the future. At this time, Apis also came up. She was also very angry about what happened last night. What made her most angry was that this damn bastard not only bullied her, but also ran to Heda's room to tell her what he was doing. However, in order to make her life more comfortable, even if she was very dissatisfied, she did not show it, but just lay aside. Hedy may feel that Apis is embarrassed here, even if she thinks Apis may not know. After all, she knows that Apis is a little girl who was rescued, that's all. Of course, being charming and protruding is her natural capital. It can only be said that she is overmature. But when facing Apis, she still felt a little embarrassed, so she found an excuse to leave. After Hedy left, Apis naturally didn't want to stay here any longer, but before she moved, Tang Mao said, you're leaving tomorrow. What are you nostalgic for here? Apis paused, then said, Cancel my contract. Say something useful. It's better not to have such unrealistic ideas. And even if I cancel the contract, where can you go? Tang Mao responded in a calm voice. If I cancel the contract now, once Medusa's mother dies, Apis will probably be torn to pieces by her two sisters. After all, there is no family affection in front of the imperial power. Chapter 530, Athens. Apis knew that what Tang Mao said was not unreasonable. Even if she was free, where could she go? As long as the mother of Medusa died, she would be finished. Moreover, speaking of it, there was nothing wrong with following Tang Mao. At least the trip to the Sahara Desert gave her some proof of security. Of course, if he didn't like to think of all kinds of ways to bully her, but being alive was enough for her. Although she didn't talk about the contract anymore, but thinking of last night, Apis said again, it's okay not to cancel it, but if what happened last night happens again, I will bite it off for you next time. This threat was obviously very effective. Tang Mao nodded hurriedly to indicate that he would not do it again in the future. Just kidding, he was not afraid of it. But this kind of thing with almost no vigilance, if it really happened, then what fun would he have in this life? Although the Parthenon is a magical place, the dead can be resurrected, and this kind of injury can naturally be treated. But it's not original. It will always be very awkward. That night, Tang Mao was indeed much more honest, and did not attack them at night. After a peaceful night's rest, everyone prepared to leave the next morning. The war will obviously continue for some time, but it is not to the point where they cannot leave the city. With the current commander Haken opening a way for them, it is not a problem to escort them out of Cairo. Then they went to the Parthenon, during which Edie said that she would never go. After all, she was from the Alpine Academy and had a natural hostility towards the Parthenon. But in the end, she was pulled on the boat by Tang Mao. If she didn't go to the Parthenon, she could go to the Greek city. After getting on the boat, several people stayed in the desert for a long time and seemed to enjoy the scenery on the sea. Now the ocean will only be a little calmer in the Mediterranean, right? Edie faced the wind, her long curly hair flying, and her beautiful blue eyes were as clear and charming as the ocean. Maybe, but the threats in the ocean are far greater than those on land. There are some terrifying monsters in the unknown sea that cannot be explored by humans. Tang Mao shook his head and said, especially this time, after the adventure in the Sahara Desert, he also experienced the true horror of this world. Although Apis had been weak for a period of time before, she had recovered after recuperating in Cairo for so long. Even if her two sisters wanted to kill her, their subordinates were not strong enough to deal with the existence of an orthodox Medusa Apis. Therefore, they were peaceful along the way, and on an island, they also met Bran, who they had not seen for a long time. After Bran separated from them, she said that she would come back in half a month at most, but there was no news from her. Later, their group entered the pyramid, and Tang Mao also went to the Sahara Desert, and stayed in the pyramid for more than 4 months. In fact, he had been separated from Bran for half a year. They thought that Bran had returned to the Alps Academy to continue his studies. Of course, Edie actually sent a message to Bran to ensure her safety, but after knowing that they were going to Greece, Bran waited for them here. Whenever she saw a yacht passing by, she would go to see if Tang Mao and his group were there. Fortunately, they finally met. Before arriving in Athens, Greece, Edie also told her what had happened in the past 4 months. When she learned that they were going to the pyramids, Bran concubine did not say anything. However, after knowing that Tang Mao had actually gone to the Sahara Desert, even Bran concubine was somewhat moved. After all, in her cognition, even superclass mages rarely walked out of the Sahara alive. Otherwise, how could it still be a mystery now? After briefly telling about the Sahara Desert, Edie asked Emofan if there were any fun places in Athens, or if there were any good places to shop. Emofan had been here several times, so he naturally knew a little bit about it, so he introduced it. After listening to Emofan's introduction, Bran concubine's eyes also flashed with some expectation. There was no way that women were born to love shopping. In the Alps, there was the practice and indifference of the Alps, but in the famous city, there was also the little madness that they couldn't let go. The two women had already discussed the itinerary before they got off the boat. As soon as they reached the shore, they completely forgot about the three men on the boat and went together. Of course, when they were discussing, they also asked Apis if she wanted to join them. Apis was obviously very interested in these things, so she agreed directly. After all, the clothes that Tang Mao bought for her, although normal, were not what she liked. As for the issue of spending, Apis didn't need Tang Mao to squeeze her at all. After all, when she lived in the human world before, she had already made enough money. After all, she was a demon, not a human, and some laws would naturally not be obeyed obediently. After arriving at the place, the three women left, and Zhao Manan also took Mo Fan away to have fun. Mu Bei and Tang Mao went back to the hotel separately. He didn't go with Mo Fan, not because he was afraid of Hidi, but because the little Fengji he brought from the Sahara seemed to be about to be born. When he was on the boat, he already felt that she was about to break out of the shell. So after arriving in Athens, the first thing he did was to welcome the birth of his third daughter. Snow Girl and Flame Princess also seemed to have sensed the birth of the new elemental pet. They were naturally very curious about the new little friend. Pa. Just as 6 pairs of eyes were staring at the egg, a series of cracking sounds suddenly occurred. Then, a small whirlwind appeared in front of the three of them. The source of this small whirlwind was naturally Little Wind Princess. When she completely broke out of the shell, Tang Mao discovered that it seemed that the elemental pets all had the same feeling during their infancy. Another little porcelain doll was born, but with the first experience of taking care of Flame Princess, it was not a big deal to deal with it. Moreover, after being born, Little Wind Princess also gnawed her little shell clean. Looking at the little guy with bare butt, Tang Mao made her a small dress with that special material. When she was in her infancy and childhood, Flame Princess and Snow Girl were the same. In fact, it was only Yanji's clothes that were more difficult to make. After all, she was a favorite of the fire attribute, especially when she was promoted. The burning feeling was really a waste of materials. But Zuno and Zhao Fengji were obviously much simpler. However, when they reached maturity, he didn't have to worry about these. They had their own unique clothes, and he didn't know how they came from. Maybe they were born with them? Zhao Fengji looked at Tang Mao, then at Zuno and Yanji, and was full of curiosity about the things in front of her. Tang Mao drew a contract, and then nodded at her little head. Zhao Fengji probably didn't reject it, because the first person she saw was Tang Mao, and she agreed directly. Tang Mao also immediately sensed that there was an extra space in his first contract space. Then he took out the prepared wind attribute spirit seed, and handed it to the little guy. After the little guy signed the contract, he didn't reject the things given by Tang Mao at all. Moreover, the spirit seed fragments handed over seemed to be full of attraction. Zhao Fengji held it and nodded. That is to say, the current economic strength is enough for him to squander. Otherwise, the resources for Snow Girl, Flame Girl and a Little Wind Girl in 1 month would be an astronomical figure! Exclamation mark. Moreover, it seems that Flame Girl has recently felt that she has been hindered and cannot improve her strength at all. Of course, she is improving, but the speed is extremely slow. Tang Mao also recalled that the Flame Witch who guarded Flame Girl once told him that there seemed to be a place suitable for Flame Girl to practice in the north corner of Zoyan. Moreover, it seemed that it would be very beneficial for Flame Girl to go there. After the government ended, he ignored this. After thinking about this, Tang Mao felt that he must go to Zoyan again next time he returned to the country. In addition, the eldest daughter seemed to be a little emotional. After all, Flame Girl now has 3 kinds of soul fire, while she only has 2 kinds of soul ice. I have to find a place with extreme ice attributes for her. Sure enough, although the strength of having more daughters has increased several times, it is really difficult to raise them. Chapter 531, Delivery of Grain. After successfully passing the delivery period, Tang Mao finished feeding the milk powder, spiritual seed fragments, and let Zhao Fengji go back to the contract space to rest. Zhao Fengji is now the original Yanji, eating and sleeping, sleeping and eating, just digesting energy. Other things, don't care about or participate. What makes Tang Mao a little puzzled is that Zhao Fengji doesn't seem to have sand and dust in the wind as imagined, but pure wind. There was a feeling before, but now it's gone suddenly. After all, the wind of sand and dust is stronger than this pure wind, so Tangmao is quite disappointed to see it lose this ability. However, think about it carefully. Her mother was invaded by a strange power and mutated to have the power of sandstorm. Although she was eroded by the strange energy, she was finally absorbed by the devil beads. Moreover, if she hadn't stopped it in time, this little guy would probably not have survived until now. So, it seems reasonable that there is no such power of sand and dust. Anyway, it has been contracted, and she is also an elemental pet. Even if there is no sand and dust, the increase in the wind system in the future will definitely not be bad. As long as I wait until Xiao Fengji grows to the level of Yanji and others, I may not need to take action in the future when I fight with the same system. A few contracted beasts can easily handle it. Moreover, this time when I return to the country, I must find those totems. The most important thing is to awaken them one by one. In this way, even if he offends some big forces in the future, he will not panic. Others have armies and elite mages, but can they compare with a bunch of monarchs and monsters under his command? Moreover, all totems are born with some undefeated advantages. Unless they are of the same strength, 3 or 4 monsters of the same level may be able to compete, right? And a monarch level demon can match 4 or 5 or even more superclass mages who are not very prominent. In addition to his elemental pets, Medusa and the vampire Bora, as well as Ziohei, whose bloodline was increased several times not long ago. If he hadn't been scared in the Sahara, Tangmao felt that there was no place in this world that he couldn't step into. But after this experience, he felt that it was better to be low-key. This world is really far from being as simple as he imagined. At night, Apis came back from shopping with Hidi and Bran. The 3 of them carried a lot of big and small bags in their hands. After Hidi came back, she took out a piece of clothes for Tangmao to show off the results. But as a man who knows his own preferences, these clothes are obviously not in his eyes. After all, if a person looks good, any clothes will feel the same. Of course, although these clothes are not bad, they obviously don't give him that kind of emotional excitement or attraction. Apis is naturally clear about Tangmao's preferences. After all, most of her luggage is those. Even if she doesn't know how much they have been torn, there is still no shortage of them in the box. So, when Hidi took Tangmao to admire her achievements, she said nothing. Although Branki was very refined, she was not a fool. When she bought clothes for Hidi and took Tangmao to evaluate them, she also found clues. So during the period when she was away, Hidi was pushed by Tangmao, the dead pig? This made her not know how to explain to teacher Jailan. When she went back, it would be fine if Tangmao was a person who could be entrusted with life, but in Branki's opinion, he was obviously not that kind of person. But no matter what she thought in her heart, things had already happened. This was no longer something she could control. When Branki was wondering, Apis frowned her beautiful eyebrows. Apis immediately thought of something, and after a poo sound, she muttered, "This bastard," and then went back to her room angrily. Branki looked at Apis, who suddenly left in anger, and was a little confused. I don't understand what happened to this little cutie. Although Apis is almost as tall as Hidi, Tangmao said that she was rescued by him. In Branki's opinion, this is just a very small and weak sister. Even if she didn't want to, Branki would be willing to take her back to the Alpine Academy. After all, the Alpine Academy is a shelter for those poor girls. Although their lives are indeed a bit difficult now, the huge Alpine Academy will not just end it. Branki is a little confused. Why did such a well-behaved and cute little sister suddenly look so angry? Branki walked over curiously, and when she was about to speak, she suddenly thought of something. The face that had been calm all the time suddenly flushed. At this moment, she suddenly understood why Apis left in anger. It turned out that these 2 people ignored them directly. In the end, Branki had to leave in disgrace. But she ignored how Apis, an ordinary little girl, noticed it in the first place. You know, even she only found out after Apis left. On the other side, Apis returned to the room and felt unhappy. But then, she wondered, what was there to be unhappy about? Damn it. Apis felt terrible about her current appearance. However, she couldn't help herself from being angry, especially when she thought of that thing. Soon, Apis gave herself an explanation. That is, she was disgusted! Exclamation mark. At this time, Hedi was actually doing the same thing as Apis. But Hedi was obviously a woman who couldn't afford to play, and she quit after a while. Of course, he was also a hard-working person. Since Hedi quit, then the next step was naturally his own performance. Chapter 532 Asher Ruaya. After all, only someone as outstanding as himself could conquer so many outstanding women. How could an ordinary person have such strength? Question mark? At night, when Tangmiro went out to look for food, he saw Emofan and Zaomanan sitting there with a decadent look on their faces. He asked in confusion, "Why didn't you two go to drink wine tonight? Are you facing your failed life here?" Hearing this, the two turned back at the same time. They were already looking like they were about to die, and now they didn't want to say a word. Is Mubei about to touch the edge of the super level and was stimulated? When they left the pyramid, Tangmiro felt that Mubei's ice system seemed to have signs of a breakthrough. Moreover, if I remember correctly, in the original book, Mubei also took the lead in breaking through the super level after leaving the pyramid. Looking at the two people's appearance, they must have been stimulated. After all, they are still Guofu players, and they are the Guofu team that won the first place in the world colleges. Now they are surpassed by Mubei, which is simply I'm thinking about whether to kill him first now. Emofan said with a painful face. Zaomanan nodded in agreement, thinking it was feasible. Then the two of them discussed and left, heading towards the auction site. After all, they had gained a lot in the pyramid. As for Tangmiro, he was too lazy to go. After all, he was hungry. Hedi was naturally not expected to go with him, and Apis was probably out of the question. As for Bran, although he wanted to flirt with her, she had given him almost no chance along the way. Moreover, when he paid his taxes during the day, he was afraid that she would know everything, so Kinshuo was too lazy to go and make trouble for himself. He found a place to eat supper and replenished his energy. When he came back from supper, Emofan and Zaomanan also came back. Moreover, Emofan handed a deer horn to Tangmiro and said, "Tang boss, look. Totem?" Before Tangmiro took it, he immediately reacted and took it in his hand. At this time, the Killing Jade also trembled. "Damn. How did you find it? Why didn't I find anything?" Zaomanan asked in confusion, after seeing Tangmiro recognize it at a glance. "Yes, this is a totem. It should be the horn of a sacred deer." Emofan nodded and replied, "Take it, go back and look for clues. If you find it, you will have the possibility of advancing to the super level." Tangmiro handed it back to Emofan, and then walked into the room. When Emofan heard this, he was overjoyed. Advance to the super level. Zaomanan beside him hurriedly said, "What about me, Boss Tang? Your totem cannot absorb its power. It is not a belonging." Tangmiro turned around and responded. Zaomanan, who was already a little depressed, lost all motivation after hearing this. However, how Emofan brainwashed him next was not his concern. He planned to go to the Parthenon. Although he had fully recovered, it did not mean that he did not need the magic medicine of the Parthenon. It was always helpful to be prepared. Originally, Emofan was going to find Yixingsha and then find Asher Ruaya through her. Unfortunately, Yixingsha was not in the Parthenon. She seemed to be in the UK, and she was in the family of his old lover Irene. Speaking of which, he had not contacted Irene since the national government competition ended. Well, except for the mature Japanese girl Mochizuki Chiksen, he had hardly contacted her. However, before he went to the Parthenon, a familiar but strange figure walked over. When he saw her coming, Tangmiro stopped. After all, the real owner had already come. Why would he go to Parthenon? As for Asher Ruaya knowing his arrival, he was not surprised at all. After all, Asher Ruaya was an intelligence dealer. "I haven't seen you for so long. I thought you had forgotten me." After the woman came over, she spoke in a voice that made people feel numb. "Are we familiar with each other?" Tangmiro responded in a light voice after hearing her say this. This little fox's words are somewhat conspiratorial. After all, she is an expert in cheating people. So, at this time, he naturally wouldn't get close to her. Even though he was greedy, roses were beautiful but very prickly. If he didn't have complete control, he still didn't want to pick them. Ashurua was obviously the kind of vegetable that was not easy to pick, just like Apis was controlled by the contract and would bite it off by himself. Like this kind of weird-tempered ghost, it was even more unknown what she would do. You flirted with me, and now you say you don't know me. Ashurua continued, looking at her expression. If you don't know, it's as if you have abandoned her. But it seems that you haven't done anything. This is a bit of a loss. When did I flirt with you? Tangmao said again. Ashurua found that talking to Tangmao almost always hit her explosive point. Tangmao, you dead scumbag, stinky hooligan. Then, she no longer pretended to be a cold goddess and started to curse like a little shrew. Well, that's right, it's much more normal. Tangmao nodded and said. Ashurua paused, and for a moment she was speechless. Looking at Ashurua who had returned to normal, Tangmao directly reached out and slapped her. Still so elastic, still so soft, still so loud. Without waiting for Ashurua to lose her temper, Tangmao pressed her against the wall and said, "You knew I was coming so quickly. What's the matter? Have you been paying attention to me secretly? Yes, who told you to be frivolous and not want to take responsibility? Naturally, I have to pay more attention to you. I'll go and finish you off when you're dying." Ashurua was pressed against the wall, and she didn't struggle, but responded softly. This woman is simply a natural fox. Even if she doesn't show it deliberately, she still looks like someone who can't stand it. Chapter 533, Restriction of Elemental Pets. Then how about I give you a chance now? Tangmao said, and slowly stretched out his hand. When he was about to touch her softness, she stopped him with her hand. You didn't seem to be interested in me just now, and it seems that you also said that we are not familiar with each other. After Ashurua stopped Tangmao's hand, she chuckled and said, "Now we are familiar with each other." His left hand was stopped, but he still had his right hand. Unfortunately, Ashurua was so easy for him to touch. She was hit just now because it happened suddenly and she was not prepared. But now she would not let him succeed. After blocking two hands, Ashurua found that her soft lips were blocked inadvertently. Still feeling full of aggression, her defense was quickly broken. After kissing for about a minute, she got a chance to breathe. At this time, Ashurua was like the king of flowers, delicate and tender, which really made people's appetite open. It just so happened that he was full of energy now, and when he was thinking about completing a breakthrough with her, Ashurua hurriedly said, "Aren't you afraid that the girlfriend you brought with you will mobilize her family to destroy you after knowing it? I will repent when I die." At this time, what can he be afraid of? You rogue. Ashurua was a little speechless, but she still hurriedly used the shadow system to escape Tangmao's invasion. "Hey, what do you mean?" Tangmao was a little dissatisfied. This woman came to hook up with him, but she was irresponsible when she started the fire. Although he knew it would be like this, he couldn't help it. Seeing Tangmao's dissatisfaction, Ashurua came up again and said softly, "When you can never forget me, I will satisfy you." Do I look like the kind of person who throws away things after use and doesn't admit his clothes? Yeah, like ever since Tangmao made a scene at the Parthenon and left, she has been paying attention to him. This guy is a dead scum. After the end of the government, he has never seen any girl who had a relationship with him go to see him. In this case, even though Ashurua admires his power very much, she understands that the easier it is to get, the less it will be cherished. Although she has great confidence in herself, the girls around him, which one is worse? That's right, Ashurua completely surrendered to Tangmao's terrifying power. The demonic power almost shocked her. Even if she was at full strength, she was afraid that she would not be the opponent of this man. So, she wanted to win him over. Although she didn't care about his feelings, she didn't want to be the one who was left alone. "You will lose me forever if you do this," Tangmao continued. "Hehe, but I believe I can always make you feel itchy." Ashurua was deliberately fierce when she spoke. "Aren't you afraid that I will beat you first and then?" Facing the harassment of this dead fox, he said very seriously, "Although you are very strong, as long as you don't use your terrible power, I believe I can hold on until the arrival of the Golden Knights." Ashurua was still not afraid, and she even stuck to him. To be honest, Tangmao really had no way to deal with her. The last time the Parthenon took action, he was a demon. If not, if all the Golden Knights of the Parthenon attacked together, he would be courting death, based on his own strength. The most important thing is that a powerful knight, Wente's adopted son and Ashuria's brother, just came back not long ago. Even if his strength has increased greatly now, if he really turns against them and wants to leave safely in the end, he will need the help of the power of the devil. He is really stupid to use a devil to satisfy his craving. You are sure that I dare not touch you, so you come to make trouble? Although he actually wanted to find her to get some healing medicine or something, after meeting her, it was obviously beyond his imagination. Moreover, such words made him very unhappy. There is always a sense of frustration. He obviously has the strength to eat this piece of meat, but he can't eat it! Exclamation mark. Still have to look at her like this stupidly. Don't misunderstand me, Yixingsha is not here. I know you've been to the Sahara Desert and got injured, so I came here to give you some Parthenon magic medicine. As she said that, Ashurua took out some medicine. One look at the appearance, you can tell that it is Parthenon's top blood bottle. She brought some medicines for stopping bleeding, healing, and all kinds of medicines. Who told you that I was going to find Yixingsha? Tangmao was not polite and took it directly. He didn't doubt anything. After all, he was not afraid of any poison. Demon blood is immune to any toxic drugs. Moreover, looking at her appearance, it seems that she is afraid that she will get too close to Yixingsha. At this time, she still prepared poison for herself. Then she is not Ashurua. You saved her life, and her lover is following you. If you don't look for her, will you look for me? Ashurua said again. I was looking for you, but I don't like your attitude, Tangmao replied. Really? Ashurua seemed to ignore what Tangmao said later and asked him. Really? Seeing that Tangmao didn't seem to be lying, she said, so, you still remember me? I think you, the little fox, have done more than her. If that's the case, why are you looking for her? Tangmao said, shaking all these things in front of her. Yixingsha is not stupid, but she is too saintly. Although she has a good reputation, in the actual power grab, reputation is useless. In the original book, if it weren't for the help of the spirit and Demophan, the mad dog, she would have more than enough to protect herself, but she would have no chance to grab power. After all, who hasn't been decisive in fighting for power since ancient times? Hehe. Ashurua smiled charmingly again, and then said, since you miss me, I'll tell you a piece of news. The news that the little fox said was naturally big news. At least not everyone can get it, but he, who is familiar with some of the trends, actually guessed some of it. So Tangmao was not very interested. But what Ashurua said next made everyone dumbfounded. Why do you seem so uninterested? You know, my news is very expensive. If I give it to you for free, shouldn't you be looking forward to it? Ashurua said very dissatisfiedly. Sure enough, as long as the facial features are good, every frown and smile is so beautiful. Especially the fairy temperament on her body, which is not weaker than Apis and Yushishi. But just like Apis, it can't be eaten, and even the fragrance will be boring. At least now the two of them are standing here like this. Even if she sticks to her body, the little brother doesn't have much reaction. To put it nicely, it's that she has strong self-control. To put it bluntly, it means that she knows there is no hope, so what's the use of being excited? Then you can go, after you finish speaking. Tangmao said again. What I want to talk about is your elemental pets. Although I don't understand why you have so many summoned pets, I have collected some information about elemental pets during this period. Once they reach the level of Demon Lord, they need more than just resources to advance. They also need to find the most concentrated elemental spiritual land in the place where they were born and raised to unlock a seal in their bodies. Otherwise, they can only stop there. Some of them may have this situation when they are in the middle level. After saying this, Ashurua stopped talking and looked like she was going to leave. How could Tangmao let her leave? This news was obviously very important to him. He immediately reached out and grabbed her and said, "You haven't finished yet? But didn't you drive them away?" That pitiful little expression seemed to have suffered a lot of grievances. "Blame me, keep talking." Seeing this, Tangmao had to choose to give in. "Then you will." Don't be too pushy. Without waiting for Ashurua to continue to make conditions, he interrupted. Hearing this, she pursed her lips and snorted before continuing. 9 out of 10 elemental pets that have not been contracted will find it difficult to break this seal. After being contracted, they can get your help. As long as they find the right place, they may be able to continue to improve. Seeing how anxious you are, your contracted pet must have encountered this problem, right? Chapter 534 The Angry Fox. Speaking of which, in the original novel, Yanji barely reached the Supreme Monarch in the end, because of various special conditions, or it can be said, that she was invincible among monarchs, but she never entered the realm of the Emperor. So, they still have such a restriction? I thought I knew everything, but now it seems that it is not the case. However, if Yanji had not had this reaction recently, he would have found it hard to believe, and then he said, "Why did you search for this news?" It can only be said to be a coincidence, and knowing that you have an elemental pet, I took a look. However, if you want to break through to a higher realm, how difficult it is. In fact, Ashurua did not think this news was so important, but she continued to talk when she saw Tangmao was interested. However, there are so many demons at the top of the monarch, and even if they stay for hundreds of years, they may not be able to touch that threshold. She does not think that people like Zunu and Yanji can reach that level in less than a few hundred years. Thank you, I'm going back. After understanding it, Tangmao got the healing medicine and prepared to go back to his residence. Won't you stay with me for a while? Hearing this, Tangmao looked back. Somehow, Ashurua gave him a very lonely feeling. Go back and vent your anger. You won't help me. Why are you staying here? Although Tangmao said so, after seeing such a little fox, he still walked to her side and pulled her to sit on the chair together. Looking at the man in front of her who said one thing and one thing, she didn't know what to say for a while. I feel sorry for you, so I decided to stay with you for a while. Really, but I don't need you to pity me with your hands. The moment he came back and sat beside her, she felt warm in her heart. Although she admired his power more, if she didn't like him at all, how could she let him flirt with her? Ashurua didn't care about those false reputations, but it didn't mean that she didn't care about the opposite sex being reckless with her. However, this warm heart was less than 3 seconds, and the hand came in. This guy didn't have something in his hand. Would it break? Do you have any more news about me? Tell me more. Tangmao ignored her. She didn't struggle anyway, so he changed the subject. Ashurua leaned gently towards his shoulder, as if she was afraid of being rejected. When she leaned close, she said again, my news is very expensive. I'll just accompany you for one night. My worth is also very expensive. Shameless, who wants you to accompany me? You bastard. Ashurua sat up and cursed. But Tangmao seemed to have done nothing and continued, do you have it or not? Don't be so hesitant. Ashurua's eyes turned and continued, yes, but I need to tell you this news quietly. Come over here with your ear. You don't want me to come over and bite me, do you? Tangmao said with full vigilance. He has been bitten by Apis many times recently, so when he saw her sharp little tiger teeth, he was on guard. You can pinch me, but I can't bite you? Ashurua did think so. After all, this damn claw just couldn't be slapped away. No, there's no room for negotiation. Hiss, you're born in the year of the dog. Before Tangmao finished speaking, Ashurua bit his arm with her "Woo, it's bleeding, and you're still biting." He didn't struggle too much. After all, if he struggled at this time, 2 people would be injured. Moreover, she looked angry. If he didn't let her vent, wouldn't he be the one who suffered the loss? I'm angry. Ashurua still didn't let go, but looked at Tangmao and asked, what the hell are you talking about? Open your mouth first. Looking at such a Greek goddess, Tangmao felt a little funny. Let go, or I'll hit you. Hiss. Okay, I was wrong. I won't be angry with you anymore. Seeing that the blood beads were coming out, he still had the leisure to make trouble with her. This is biting your own flesh. Seeing Tangmao give in, Ashurua was relieved. After a closer look, she saw that he had indeed bitten and bled. After she was relieved, she asked again, does it hurt? Let me bite you and try. She also felt that this question was a bit silly, so she took out a bottle of medicine powder and sprinkled some on his arm. I don't know if this medicine is special or because of his body structure. There was a row of bloody teeth marks just now, but within a minute, it was as if he had never been bitten. What is this medicine? Give me a few bottles. Tang Mao's eyes lit up. This is a hemostatic medicine. It's in the medicine I brought you. Sometimes she was helpless about Tang Mao, this shameless guy. After all, over the years, she had only met him, and she always suffered. Before this, she had always been playing tricks on others. Even if she took advantage, she took advantage of others. But how can it be said that, if a person's one feature is too prominent, those shortcomings may not be a big deal? Moreover, if Tang Mao had not been there at the Parthenon, she would have been in danger. She had a trump card, but she could not make a big fuss when she was accused of a crime at the Parthenon. Oh, he took a special look while listening to her. You don't trust me so much. Ashurua was very dissatisfied with this. She was so sincere, so why couldn't this guy give her some trust? No, I'm afraid that I won't be able to tell what it is, so I separated it first. That time in the Sahara Desert, he didn't know what medicine he was using. Anyway, he swallowed almost everything that was edible. If this explanation was said by someone else, it might be a bit far-fetched, but Tang Mao didn't seem to understand Greek characters at all, so he said, next time I will write your Chinese characters for you. Why didn't you write it for me this time? Why don't you die? Ashurua looked at Tang Mao angrily. If it were another man, he would be grateful to heaven and earth for receiving such treatment from her. How come everything is different when it comes to Tang Mao? If I die, you will be a widow, and there are so many discerning and high quality leftover women in the world waiting for me to rescue them. How can you die? I will fight you. Chapter 535. Being Tricked. Updated. After staying with Ashurua for half the night, at first, he was just simply greedy for her body, but the two of them started chatting unconsciously. After chatting, they found that there seemed to be quite a lot of topics. At least on some things, the two of them had the same views. When they left, Ashurua even took the initiative to give him a hug. The feeling of rubbing against soft peaks is really good. When he returned to his residence, Tang Mao found that Hidi was awake. He had been depressed for most of the night. Seeing Hidi so energetic, wouldn't she grow meat if she didn't move more? Hidi was obviously also a woman who paid attention to her figure, so he had to help her. But as he approached, for some reason, Tang Mao felt that Hidi's face suddenly turned livid. Then, a powerful telekinesis directly blasted him out of the room. Bang. It was true that he was not prepared at all. Fortunately, Hidi didn't have murderous intentions, but just hit him against the wall. Damn, what's wrong with you? Tang Mao was a little confused. She was quite gentle in the morning. Why was she like this in the afternoon? No, even if he wanted to change his face, there must be a reason, right? He was sure that Hidi had never followed him. With his mental power, Hidi had no way to follow him secretly without being discovered. So at this time, he naturally had to be more confident. Hidi just looked at Tang Mao, as if she had suffered a great injustice, and her eyes were a little wet. At this time, Branki and others also came out of their respective rooms. This floor was reserved by them and no one else was staying. As soon as Zhao Manan came out, he came to Tang Mao and said, "You said you didn't even call me when you were drinking wine. How rude." As he said that, Zhao Manan pointed to his left cheek intentionally or unintentionally. Hearing him say that, and watching his movements, he instantly understood why Hidi was angry, and suddenly understood why Ashurua had that inexplicable smile when she left. Ahem. I didn't plan to go. Tang Mao could only follow Zhao Manan's words. After all, drinking wine and not doing anything else, it was still possible to be forgiven. You went there to drink. Who did you drink with? What else did you do? Hidi walked over with a cold face and asked. Zhao Manan has a VIP there. After I went there were a few people pouring drinks. I promise I didn't do anything except drinking. Tang Mao said again. Then what's wrong with your face? Tang Mao was speechless for a while, and Zhao Manan next to him came to the rescue and said, Hidi, you don't know, they are always very enthusiastic, in order to sell more drinks. Sometimes, even if we reject them, they will tease us intentionally or unintentionally. But I can guarantee that he will definitely not have anything with a few bar girls. Branki looked at Tangmao and was very unhappy. Speaking of which, teacher Jailan asked her to take care of Hidi. It would be fine if Hidi didn't take good care of herself and was taken advantage of, but this pig was a playboy. She didn't know how to explain it when she went back. Hidi, believe me, I really didn't do anything. Besides, even if I want to, I have to have the physical strength, Tangmao continued. After all, the two of them were tossing and turning until almost evening. Hidi thought about it carefully. Just now, she just saw that red lip print which was a bit hot, so the mentality she had maintained before was instantly broken. Humph. However, although she knew that she might have wronged him because he went to drink without her and was accompanied by another woman, Hidi felt that she had to ignore him for a while. Then she turned around and went back to her residence. Because the door was broken, she used space magic to set up a small barrier and reminded Tangmao, if you dare to come in before you are clean, I will ignore you in this life. No. How can it be considered clean? Tangmao's mouth twitched slightly. I'm quite white. It's not dirty there. Hidi glared at Tangmao when she heard it, and he shut up very tactfully. There was no way. I was in the wrong. At this time, I had to give in. Otherwise, if they were stubborn, it would definitely turn a small matter into a big one. After Branki saw Hidi enter the room, she looked at Tangmao and said, Hidi is a very good girl. Since you have already, I hope you don't let her down. Otherwise, I don't know what her family is like, and I don't know how powerful you are, but our Alpine Academy will definitely not let you go. Just like the Casa family that had the Forbidden Spell family, they were not afraid of the Alpine Academy, so naturally they would not be afraid of Tangmao. He knew this too. Teacher Branki, believe me, this is really an accident. Tangmao argued again. Whether it is an accident or not, I think you know better than me, Branki said as if she saw through everything. After she finished speaking, she also went back to the room. Tangmao looked at her figure and felt unhappy. Turning back to look at Nubei and said, do you still have the medicine you prepared last time? Nubei paused, then really took it out, and then said, you don't want to drug her, do you? I'm just trying to satisfy my desire. Why are you so cooperative? Tangmao's mouth twitched slightly. Didn't he just want to satisfy his desire to relieve his anger? I didn't expect that this thief really has this thing. Emo Fan and Zao Manan looked at him with a look of contempt. Nubei felt very wronged. Speaking of which, the last time he made a mistake in the combination, it was because of insufficient materials. As a result, he was ridiculed by these two bastards for a long time. Later, he made it to prove himself. But who knew that he had never had a chance and was fooled by Tangmao today? He was speechless. Tangmao got up and walked towards another room. Anyway, there were so many rooms here, so he didn't worry about sleeping on the street. Nubei watched Tangmao leave, opened his mouth, and when he was about to explain, he saw Emofan and Zao Manan coming over. Emofan and Zao Manan didn't mean to listen to his explanation, but just tuck a pack quietly. Fuck your ancestors. Nubei was dumbfounded. The two ignored him at all. Emofan looked at Zao Manan and said, why do you want this thing? What about you? Zao Manan asked instead of answering. If this thing is used properly, it will be of great help in battle. Emofan grinned. After all, he witnessed Bran's confused look last time. Even a superclass mage couldn't calm down, so it was conceivable that Nubei's concoction was also a fine product. Zao Manan actually saw Emofan taking it, so he deliberately angered Nubei. He didn't need this thing. Moreover, he didn't bother to do such things. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 536. Do you want to cancel your contract? Update. The next morning, Hidi and Blanche left the hotel. Tangmao didn't care much about their departure. The main purpose of their coming here was to investigate something. About Edith's matter, Dean Perry would rather offend the Casa family than save a criminal. Edith didn't completely lose her humanity. In the end, she confessed the eyes issue behind her. However, Edith didn't confess much, so Blanche needed to verify it in person. As for what specific conspiracy there is, or if Isisha is still doing something that eats people without spitting out bones, it depends on the subsequent investigation of Alps. These things are not for Tang Mao to get involved, so the two went to investigate early in the morning, and he didn't show his goodwill to participate in it. The two of them went out early in the morning, and came back at night. Everyone met at a place selected by Zao Manan on the hillside of a mountain facing the sea. On one side is the quiet sea, on the other side is delicious food, and sitting opposite are beautiful women who are outstanding and stunning. Of course, Tang Mao kept his eyes on Hidi. Hidi didn't seem to be that angry. Of course, it was mainly because those bar hostesses, how could they compare with her? This kind of thing was obviously not worth it. The two of them soon reconciled, as if nothing had happened. Teacher Branky, where did you go all day? At this time, Mo Fan asked curiously. I went to check some things. The conspiracy that happened in our Alps may be related to a candidate of the Parthenon. Branky did not hide it, and said it directly. Upon hearing this, Mo Fan immediately didn't want to say anything. After all, he originally listened to Zao Manan, and wanted to get some help for Xingxia, but this matter, although it was not Xingxia's doing, but at this time, saying something about her Parthenon, wouldn't the master and apprentice kill him? Humph, the people of the Parthenon are really not good people, Hidi said angrily after hearing what Branky and Mo Fan said. Tang Mao was completely indifferent. For him, everything should be left to nature. He couldn't get involved in the affairs of any foreign forces now. After all, his foreign lovers were more special than each other. Hey, eat. Why are you talking about such complicated things? Zao Manan suddenly interrupted. After all, he was the one who suggested that Mo Fan find some help for Yi Xingxia, but now it seems that there is no point in talking, so he hurriedly changed the subject. At this time, Mu Bei, who had been silent all the time, suddenly said, didn't you feel the table shaking? Speaking of which, since they learned that he was going to advance to the super level, Mo Fan and Zao Manan were targeting him. Of course, it was the kind of targeting of bad friends, not really jealous targeting. After all, they were brothers who had been through life and death together. They were actually very happy for Mu Bei to be able to touch the threshold of the super level. Speaking of which, this time Tang Mao helped him avoid his sister, so Mu Bei, the thief, didn't have to worry about playing games with the Dark King again. His life was also bright. After hearing what he said, the plates on the table jumped up all of a sudden, and the food on them almost fell onto the table. Looking at other places, the glasses gently collided with each other, making a series of crisp sounds, and gradually the tables and chairs began to shake. Damn, is there an earthquake here? Mo Fan said with a puzzled look. Apis, who was sitting on the side enjoying the food, looked at him with a little contempt, then pointed outside and said, look out the window. The nearly 270-degree sea view window allows you to see the sea and sky connected at night. It is as open as being in the night sea. But what is extremely shocking is that in the area where you can't tell whether it is the ocean or the night sky, I don't know when a huge black shadow appeared. Exclamation mark. The sea water only submerged its knees. Every time it took a step, there would be a violent vibration here. Its head almost touched the clouds. When it walked towards one of the seaside mountains, the mountain was only halfway up its waist. This giant shadow directly crossed the seaside mountain. Dear guests, please don't panic. It must be a titan. We are very close to the Parthenon mountain. To the south and west of the mountain are mountains and seas, where titans are more likely to appear. We are in an absolutely safe place now. This giant is actually very far away from us. Even if it approaches here, there will be powerful Parthenon mages to attack. Please enjoy your meal with peace of mind. At this time, the restaurant's broadcast sounded. It seemed that they didn't care about the appearance of this big guy at all. I don't know whether it was the mysterious confidence in the Parthenon or the feeling that the demons have now turned from evil to good. After Tang Mao looked at the Silver Moon Titan, he looked at Apis. Apathy was about to speak, but Tang Mao spoke first. We don't need to worry about Parthenon's territory. The Golden Knights here are not idle. Apathy understood what Tang Mao meant, and immediately continued to enjoy her food silently. Of course, while eating, she still told Tang Mao that the Silver Moon Titan seemed very sad. He knew this very well. But as I said, he was not a person who liked to meddle in other people's business, especially abroad. Especially in Parthenon's territory, it would be a thankless task if he took action. Of course, he still gave Emofan a friendly reminder. This Silver Moon Titan looks very desperate. If I guess correctly, he should launch an attack here. You can tell Xingxia. After all, if there is any problem here, her life will be difficult. How do you know? Hidi asked puzzledly. I guessed it, after seeing more demons. Tang Mao wiped his mouth and said. By this time, Emofan had already stood up and made a phone call. Of course, even if he did call, it would be useless. After all, Yi Xingxia didn't have much power in the Knight's Hall. She was just a hall master and a hidden chess piece. Sure enough, in a few minutes, Emofan came back, and the result was obvious. It was useless. Liu Bei looked at the Silver Moon Titan and said, what should we do now? Aren't you a superclass mage? This kind of thing should be left to you superclass mages. We high-level mages should just sit here and eat and watch you gods fight. Zhao Manan said, with a strong sour taste in his words. Liu Bei's mouth twitched slightly. The people of the Parthenon are so inactive. I really don't know how they win people's hearts. Hidi, who was beside Tang Mao, snorted coldly, with a deep obsession with the Parthenon. Let's go with them. I'm a little worried. Bran Concubine was also a good person. Even if she was unhappy with the Parthenon, she was still unwilling to stand idly by. After all, if it is true as Tang Mao said, the damage caused by the Silver Moon Titan will definitely hurt many people. Hidi looked at Tang Mao next to him, and Tang Mao shook his head and said, I'm not interested in getting involved in the affairs of the Parthenon, and it is not convenient. In the end, Emofan, Bran Concubine, Hidi, Liu Bei, and Zhao Manan, who was forced to be taken away, followed the footsteps of the Titan and chased out. Apis looked at Tang Mao and said, don't you human magicians emphasize protecting ordinary people? Why do you choose to stand by and watch? I don't like to do things that are thankless, and I'm not a savior. The people under the Parthenon mountain believe in their knights. If that's the case, why should I do this? Looking at the constantly moving Silver Moon Titan, he continued. It seems that it has no intention of leaving alive, since it came here. The sound is getting more and more desperate. Maybe it will attack tonight. Apis listened to the strange cry of the Titan and whispered. Tang Mao did not speak, but was thinking about whether to stop Sulu's damn contracted black dragon. To be honest, he was also quite interested in the Emperor level black dragon. After Sulu targeted its weakness, he could also make a contract, but the problem was that he didn't have the contract space at the moment. What are you thinking about? Apis looked at Tang Mao, who fell into silence, and asked curiously. I'm thinking about whether to cancel your contract. Chapter 537, Entertainment in the Restaurant. Apis. Apis was delighted when she heard this, but she soon accepted the cruelty of reality. She didn't feel that Tang Mao wanted to cancel the contract at all. But, after I cancel the contract with you, you will definitely not be able to give me happiness. Compared with stronger contracted beasts, I still like you more. Tang Mao continued. Apis thought to himself, it is indeed the case. Just now, it thought that the world suddenly became beautiful, but suddenly it found that it was just a joke. Suddenly, Apis looked like she didn't want to pay attention to him. However, at the same time, Apis was actually very curious about what Tang Mao just said. After looking at the Silver Moon Titan outside, Apis said dissatisfiedly, you don't think that the big guy outside is stronger than me, right? Since she knew that it was impossible for him to cancel the contract, there was no need for her to be belittled. The Silver Moon Titan was indeed very strong, but if she was not bound by the contract, she would not be worse than it at all. Well, be more confident. No matter how weak you are much more pleasing to the eye than it. Tang Mao responded. Silver Moon Titan is naturally not comparable to Apis. Although Silver Moon Titan is not weak, so what? Can it touch or sleep? Then you just fooled me? Apis said again. If you think so, I can't help it. Anyway, he is wearing clothes. What is there to be afraid of? Can this little snake girl rebel? Apis also knew that she couldn't control Tangmao's life. What she said now was powerless, so she simply shut up and looked at the Silver Moon Titan. Come here. Unfortunately, sometimes she can't ignore herself just because she wants to, especially when she meets someone like Tangmao who can seize the opportunity. Don't go too far. Apis took a few steps back, looking unwilling and reluctant. I won't eat you. Why are you so scared? Seeing her retreating instead of advancing, Tangmao was a little embarrassed. It was as if he abused her. Apis didn't respond, but the expression on her little face had already expressed, you talk as if you are talking nonsense. But in the end, she was still pulled onto Tangmao's lap. Moreover, because Hidi and the others were not here, Apis obviously could not hide. Look, I haven't taken care of you for just a few days, and you've grown smaller. You're getting more and more skilled at lying with your eyes open. Apis responded coldly. Speaking of which, since Hidi came back, she had only taken care of this little thing during the night attack. During this period, because she was there, and Apis was always hiding from her, she had seized the rare opportunity. Naturally, she couldn't let her go. Speaking of which, she was a little undereducated recently. She actually wanted to go to the Alpine Academy with Hidi and the others to practice in seclusion. Although Tangmao knew that this was impossible, she couldn't stand this little girl deliberately angering herself. Some people sitting next to them were eating. Looking at the movement here, the male compatriots were full of envy and the ladies were full of contempt. What are you looking at? Haven't you seen flirting with your own little lover? Tangmao didn't broadcast live again. When he found that they were all looking over, he immediately spoke in a bad tone. People who enjoy food here are naturally rich or noble. Some were envious, and when they heard that he was looking for trouble, a middle-aged man with a big belly stood up and said, little sister, if you are in danger from this man, you can ask me for help. This is under the Parthenon. He dare not do anything to you. Apis looked over and said with disgust, after taking a look at the other party, you are not much better than him. Zizla. Tangmao was even more direct. He gave him an electric shock with a random flash of lightning. Of course, it was because he had strong control. Otherwise, a random lightning would be enough to kill an ordinary person. But even so, the man was still electrocuted. Oh my god, what are you doing? A little honey next to him was not a secretary. When she saw her boss being electrocuted, she stood up and said, this is the Parthenon. How dare you use magic to hurt people? If you beep again, I will let you taste the electric shock. Tangmao ignored what she said. After all, it was none of their business to keep in touch with his contracted beast. Isn't it asking for trouble? The woman shut up instantly after hearing that. Although many other people were also greedy for Apis, after hearing what Apis had just said, and with Tangmao, the domineering mage, they naturally would not make trouble. As for some of the noble ladies who sympathized with Apis at the beginning, they were also a little disgusted now. In their opinion, this little girl simply liked it. But if you like it, then you like it. Why do you pretend to be reluctant? That weak look was just like the real thing. That's enough. If that's enough, take your claws out. Apis endured her displeasure and said in a light voice, not enough. Tangmao picked her up directly, and regardless of what she meant, he walked towards the bathroom. Obviously, he was not satisfied. When nearly an hour passed, some of the guests here had left, and some came back, and the fat man who had just been electrocuted was gone early. A waiter came over and was about to say something when the radio in the store suddenly rang again. Dear guests, the Silver Moon Titan has climbed over the outer wall and rolled a huge rock into the Haixi city as a rolling stone. The rolling stone has flattened 4 streets. The Parthenon Knights are rushing to deal with it. Please go to the safe barrier to take refuge in an orderly manner. The people who were drinking and chatting about life suddenly heard this and fled out of the store like chicken blood. Just kidding. Although they are all people of noble status, there are only a few mages among them. More importantly, even if there are mages among them, they can't stand the fear brought by the Silver Moon Titan. Obviously, the broadcast of this news has almost thrown away the etiquette they had maintained when eating and talking before. They ran outside in a panic, including the waiter next to Tang Mao. Tang Mao looked back at the blushing Apis and said, "Go and have a look, or go back to the hotel first. Go and have a look." This kind of problem needs to be considered. She knew exactly what she would face when she returned to the hotel, so she would rather walk around outside. It would be even better if she could meet up with Hidi and the others. Chapter 538. There are times when a monarch is so helpless that he wishes to die. When the two of them came out, the order in the city had been restored, and some high-level winter tribute mages of the Parthenon Knights also rushed down from the sacred mountain and rushed to the place where the Silver Moon Titan was. Among them, there was even a Golden Glory Knight. In terms of efficiency, the Parthenon still has it. Even if the crisis came unexpectedly, it did not affect their timely rescue. The power of Chengming International is indeed not in vain. If it were to be replaced by Yuxu Town, Tang Mao could be sure that it would not be so efficient. Even if there were no patrolling moths and black snakes, Baksha and Vampire Borer, the current security defense would be a big problem. Although Yuxu Town is growing very fast, it is still not as good as those old-fashioned families as a whole. As for those families and some internationally renowned forces, they are much worse. This is why Muningsu is busy every day. The establishment of a big family is not just a matter of Tang Mao planting a few seeds. But fortunately, his wife is very knowledgeable about this aspect, and he doesn't need to care about it at all. Even if she doesn't understand, there is still his cheap father-in-law. Muzoyan may not be very good in the eyes of many people when he was in Bo City, but for him, he is extremely important. After all, he is the one who really understands many things. Of course, Tang Mao is not useless. Just like the East China Sea Magic Association's group at the beginning, didn't it directly establish the prestige of Yuxu Town? Since then, some big families in the country have annexed some small families and aristocratic families because of the rising coastline, but no matter which family it is, they have never come to pay attention to Yuxu Town from beginning to end. Obviously, the deterrent power of his totem, that time was quite large. Although some people want to ask the military to take them down on the ground, that Yuxu Town colluded with demons. However, when the coastline rose, both Zhuansh and Baksha had contributed. For this reason, the country will not choose to take action against them. Of course, even if there is no such thing, when they do not attack humans, and now there are constant disasters everywhere, who would be willing to provoke to top-level creatures of the monarch? When Tang Mao and Apis arrived, they saw that the Silver Moon Titan was still rushing into the empty city like crazy. There were more than a dozen flying Silver Moon Knights in the sky, and several square teams of Blue Star Knights on the ground. There was also a Golden Knight guarding the highest signal tower. The magic used by the Knights had some magic circle effects. The huge thundering punishment was like a purple prison of heaven and earth, trapping the Silver Moon Giant inside. Different elemental brilliance shone everywhere on the black street, and gathered in the air into a magic storm, which severely whipped the Silver Moon Titan. Moo. The Silver Moon Titan roared wildly, and the whole city of Athens could hear it. After being hit by such intensive magic firepower, this guy still did not retreat half a step. It desperately broke through the cage of the thundering punishment, and rushed towards the commanding Golden Knight in a running posture. This method of fighting is just like risking one's life. Obviously, even a great demon at the monarch level has times when he is powerless and wants to die. Even though he has been besieged for a long time and his blood is flowing like a river, he is still rushing to the center, with no intention of running away. The Golden Knight looked at the Silver Moon Titan rushing over, and was a little panicked. After all, the knight is not afraid of death. Facing such a terrifying big guy, he was also scared. But the Silver Moon Titan was not rushing to kill him at all. His purpose seemed to be just to destroy this place. The Golden Knight also took the opportunity to escape from here. As for the destroyed place, anyway, there was no crowd, so naturally it was not as important as his own life. Death axis of space. Just as the Silver Moon Titan broke through the bombing of the Knights and was wreaking havoc, a high-pitched voice suddenly sounded in front of him. Another mage wearing a golden robe appeared at some point. His golden windbreaker fluttered, and his tall body did not look humble or small in front of the Titan. The dazzling silver light on his body made him look extremely noble. He flashed in the continuous space, and a special space point appeared at each location where he stayed. Soon, these different space axis points formed a silver stunning roulette. An axis of light that was like a finger of death in the brilliant and bright light suddenly penetrated through and perfectly pierced the Silver Moon Titan's eyebrows. As the axis of light passed, the figure of the Golden Knight also appeared. He stood proudly at the level of the back of the Silver Moon Titan's head, but the huge and mighty Silver Moon Titan had no breath of life at this time, and slowly and heavily fell backwards. Just one blow directly destroyed the Silver Moon Titan. Although the Silver Moon Titan was under siege and bombing, it is a monarch level creature after all. It was still destroying the world to its death 1 second ago, and it was gone the next second. Of course, Tang Mao and Apis did not react much to this. After all, he was strong, and they were not weak either. In fact, even if Tang Mao took action, the powerful thunder could make the current Silver Moon Titan cool down. But if he solved the Silver Moon Titan at the same time, most of the houses nearby and the knights here would be finished. Although the houses were nothing, it would be a troublesome thing if these knights were left in his hands. Although his lightning halberd was not a range magic, it could still cause huge range damage under the blessing of the domain. However, the Golden Knight's attack seemed to have no power leaking out, and it was completely bombarded on the huge body of the Silver Moon Titan. Deal with the corpse and recover as soon as possible. After solving the Silver Moon Titan, the Golden Knight of the Space Department said coldly to the other knights who followed him around. Yes. The knights heard the voice and responded one after another. Fortunately, Lord Norman arrived in time and solved the violent Silver Moon Titan for his subordinates. I don't know what happened. This Silver Moon Titan is not afraid of death at all and rushed into the city like crazy. This situation is usually only the lower level cannon fodder creatures. How could a Silver Moon Titan be like this? The Wind Knight who commanded before said, "You can report to the Silver Moon Knight Hall. You are not qualified to wear the Golden Glory badge." The Golden Glory Knight called Norman did not listen to his flattery at all, but said to the Wind Golden Glory Knight in a very cold and indifferent way, "Lord Norman, your subordinates." The Golden Glory Knight felt bitter and wanted to explain, but Norman did not give him a chance to say more, and he did not see him construct a constellation. Silver diamond dust appeared around him. Before the Golden Glory Knight who commanded this battle begged, Norman suddenly disappeared. Did he really disappear here? And within hundreds of meters, there was no breath and figure of him at all, as if he did not appear here. Even with Tang Mao's current mental power and space cultivation, he couldn't do this. I have to say, this Norman is still a bit of a good guy. After the problem here was solved, Tang Mao took Apis to find Hidi and the others. It seems that Zao Manan's full-scale blocking saved a lot of people. Even though the Silver Moon Titan made a big fuss, no one died. However, Brancy, Emofan, Nubei and Hidi all had some injuries on their bodies. It can be seen that they tried to stop the Silver Moon Titan. If it weren't for their actions, even if the knights were efficient enough, it would be impossible to make this place zero consumption. As for the injured, they were naturally carried to the hospital one by one, and Emofan and the others naturally went to Parthenon for treatment. Of course, Brancy and Hidi refused. Even when Tang Mao took out some of the magic medicine from Parthenon, they all looked like they didn't need it. He didn't like to force people to do things that were difficult. Since the girls didn't like it, it was naturally not easy to force them to use it. After that, Tang Mao returned to the hotel with Brancy and Hidi. As for Emofan and the others, they went to the Parthenon. Are you kidding? After all, they helped save this place, so it would be justified if they didn't give them treatment. Of course, Zao Manan went there for the girls in the Parthenon. In his world, only women are the best medicine for healing. Chapter 539 Ashurua meets Muningsu. After returning to the hotel with Hidi, Blanche and Apis, Blanche went back to her room to recuperate. Because Hidi was there, Apis didn't worry about being harassed by Tang Mao at all. After all, this thing was eating her and wanted to occupy Hidi. There were even a few times when Apis wanted to expose the face of this damn scumbag. But think about it carefully. If Hidi hadn't endured everything for her, she would probably be played with some new tricks again. In order not to be ruined, Apis chose to endure. After returning to the room, Tang Mao took out Parthenon's medicine again. Although Hee was also very resistant, could Tang Mao let her do it? Why should I be uncomfortable if I can recover quickly? No, no, if the teachers knew, they would be very sad. I don't want it. Hee looked at Tang Mao, who was about to apply medicine to her injured area, and shook her head. Because she floated too much, she bounced from time to time, which was really annoying. It's okay, you can just stop talking and think about it. You helped them this time. What's wrong with using their medicine? Tang Mao said in a coaxing tone, holding back the strange thoughts in his heart. That won't work either. I don't want it even if it hurts. Hee still refused very persistently. There was no way. The gentle way didn't work. He could only choose to change it. What are you doing? I'm still injured. Don't apply Parthenon's potion to me. I don't want it. Woo 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 Tang Mao, you bastard. After half an hour of tossing, the injured parts were finally smeared with potions, and Tang Mao even fed a few for internal use. Although Hee's condition was not that serious, he was very upset when she refused while recovering when taking the medicine, so he gave her a few more pills. After using Parthenon's medicine, Hee had obviously recovered. However, her blue eyes were full of anger. It seemed like she was blaming Tang Mao for forcing him to take the medicine. However, Tang Mao didn't seem to be a person who knew how to read people's expressions and didn't mind her anger at all. Hee covered her kissed face and looked at him with some shame and anger. Am I still angry? Did she say that he was allowed to kiss me? It's too much. When she was staring at herself with a fierce look, Tang Mao suddenly kissed to the right again. Stinky man, I want to fuck you. Hee was so angry that she pulled Tang Mao up. It seemed that she would not stop until Tang Mao was fucked to death. I don't know where this little girl learned all this, but for her clumsy hands, no technical content, and a girl who was completely focused on her appearance, it is naturally impossible. Half a day later, after Branki took the medicine and recuperated for a while, she recovered a little and left the room, thinking about going to see how Hee was. HMPH. HMPH. However, just as she walked to the door, she heard Hee's dissatisfied nasal sound. As if she was angry with Tang Mao. Branki was a little helpless, thinking, it's over. Hee has really learned bad things. This is not the first time she has encountered this. Although she has not seen it with her own eyes, Branki still fled from here shyly. That's it? Looking at Hee lying there like a dead pig, Tang Mao looked full of sarcasm, as if to say, don't you want me to do my best? Don't be complacent. Looking at Tang Mao's arrogant attitude, Hee responded weakly, sooner or later, I will let you know how terrible women are. She said this, but her heart was full of puzzlement. You know, when they were at the Egyptian pyramids, Zhao Manan and Mo Fan chatted and said that Tang Mao was very weak in this aspect. Has he ever been despised by a woman? Although she heard that the two of them stopped talking later, Hee still asked. After all, she was the one who was bullied every time, so she thought about fighting today. But the result seemed to be completely different from what they said. Or, was his previous girlfriend a fairy, making him feel weak? Whether it was in terms of appearance or the people around him, Hee was extremely confident. But today, she really had some doubts about what kind of stunning beauty Tang Mao's ex-girlfriend was. You'd better pray for yourself now, and in the future? Tang Mao turned over and said, what are you doing? I'm a wounded soldier. You have recovered. Just for Hee's regular fight, Tang Mao would naturally not kneel down now, because he has obviously become stronger. This night was still a sleepless night. Even if he had fallen asleep, his body was still awake. Even after 2 hours, Bran Concubine, who was going to visit Hee, couldn't help thinking, sure enough young people love sports. Although Bran Concubine is not very old, she obviously feels like she is in her 40s or 50s psychologically. At the same time, in another nice little shop in Athens, Munixu was also here. She said she came here because of some cooperation, but in fact it was because of something that happened in the bird city next to Yuxu town. When she arrived, Munuxin from the Mu family was also here, and the two of them met here. Many people kept looking over here. After all, they didn't often meet such a beautiful woman who was so stunning. Especially Munixu's cold look always made people want to get close to her unconsciously. But because of her strong coldness, no one dared to come and chat with her. but it was precisely because of this that they felt more attracted. At this time, Muningsu seemed extremely angry. After all, she didn't expect that there would be such a cruel thing in the place where she first trained. The sea monster stealing children is actually just a cover. She told Muningsu about what she had investigated and the news she had learned from Jiang Yu. Muningsu shook her head and sighed. Although you may not want to listen to what I said, since the disciple of Chief Panglaze said that he had encountered resistance from above, I advise you not to go too deep. But I want to know who this person behind the scenes is, and what right does he have? So many innocent children. Muningsu's voice was trembling. Obviously, she was really angry. So, even if Jiang Yu didn't let him continue to investigate, she still came here. I think if you really want to investigate, it's better to call your head of the family. After all, the people of the East China Sea Magic Association dare not do anything to him. He must have a certain influence. Otherwise, I think you should not go too deep into it, Muningsu said again. He seems to have gone to Egypt. Muningsu originally wanted to inform Tang Mao, but when she thought of his adventures every day, she didn't say anything. Then don't continue to investigate yourself, otherwise. Muningsu hadn't finished speaking when another woman came over. After seeing her walking towards them, Muningsu stopped talking. When Muningsu saw her looking behind her, she also looked over curiously. When she saw that it was Ashiruaya, her brows slightly frowned. In fact, she didn't have a good impression of this woman. But Muningsu didn't know how this woman knew that she was here. What was she doing here? Long time no see, Muningsu. After Ashiruaya came over, she sat next to her directly, not treating herself as an outsider at all. We don't seem to be familiar with each other, Muningsu said in a calm voice. Muningsu originally thought that they knew each other, but after hearing Muningsu's tone, it seemed that it was not what she thought, so she simply shut up and ate melon quietly. I know what you are looking for, and I can give you some information. Ashiruaya seemed to not care about Muningsu's attitude at all, and said in a calm voice. Muningsu paused, although she had also heard from Tang Mao that this woman was an intelligence dealer, and there was almost nothing in the world that she didn't know. However, her intelligence was extremely expensive. I don't have the money to listen to your intelligence. In addition, Muningsu didn't have any good impression of her, so she directly refused. Ashiruaya didn't care about any of this at all, and continued, are you tracking a missing child case? Muningsu's eyes became sharper, with a hint of hostility. When Ashiruaya said this, Muningsu even suspected that she was involved. Chapter 540 Muningsu calls. I really want to compete with you, but it's a pity that I don't know now that you are looking for the person behind the case, because one of your friends, a member of your national team, got information from my people. It just so happened that I was also following this matter recently, so I took the opportunity to find out about your Yuxu town. Ashiruaya was not afraid of Muningsu at all. After all, if Muningsu was the queen of ice, then she was the queen of darkness. They are people on a chain who have done many evil things. They are called Dare Language. Dare Lang has their minions all over the world and gradually formed a guild. Ashiruaya continued. Muningsu did not speak, and Ashiruaya continued, I can tell you responsibly that, if you follow this clue, there will only be two results. First, the real mastermind will arrange a few fish and shrimps for you to kill to vent your anger, and you will be complacent and think that you have dealt with a social cancer and forget about it from now on. Second, you may die, and the mastermind will threaten you with another person's life, so that you will retreat when you see the difficulty, and let you feel what it means to be suffocated by darkness. They are no different from the Black Church for being able to do such cruel things in Phenio City. After listening to Ashiruaya, Muningsu responded coldly. Ashiruaya nodded and continued, they really deserve to die, but you can't solve it. I have information about one of them who collects hearts, but your strength is not enough to take him down, so I think you'd better retreat when you see the difficulty. There are too many things in this world that are inherently unfair. Who is he, and where is he? Muningsu also knew her own weight. The real mastermind was not something she could deal with, but she didn't want to let go of this executioner who collected hearts. In the hotel lobby, after a night of conditioning, Hidi has completely recovered. In fact, Bran concubine guessed last night that Edie should have used Parthenon's medicine, but she didn't blame Edie for it. After all, if they hadn't been nosy, Edie wouldn't have been injured. The most important thing is that Bran concubine is sure that Edie would never volunteer. Edie saw Bran concubine looking at her, and she was a little embarrassed. It's not just because of the use of Parthenon, but more importantly, last night, she knew that Bran concubine went to see her. It's just that she was excited, and she was drowsy, so she didn't respond. Unlike Edie, Tangmao didn't have such awareness at all. Instead, after arriving at the restaurant, he ate and drank. At this moment, his mobile phone suddenly rang. It was not on the Parthenon mountain, but there was still a signal. But the caller was from an unfamiliar number. Hello, is this Tangmao? As soon as the call was connected, a girl with a nice voice came in. I am. Who are you? Although the voice sounded familiar, it seemed familiar to all girls. I'm Munuxin. After hearing that it was Munuxin, Tangmao was about to speak, and then she heard her say, where are you now? Can you come to Athens? Munuxu is tracking a gang. It's very dangerous. Munuxin told Tangmao that Asharuaya went to see her, and then she and Jiang Yu went to track down the stolen baby heart. I'm in Athens. Do you know where they are now? Tangmao was anxious when he heard it. It seems to be Lan Mushan. Munuxin responded. After knowing the place, Tangmao hung up the phone. This damn stinky fox was simply provoking him. She knew Munuxu was coming, but she didn't tell him. The most hateful thing is that she actually gave Munuxu the news of the silver jewelry meeting Shaba Miu. Munuxu's strength has increased dramatically now, but even with Jiang Yu, they may not be able to deal with Shaba Miu. If I remember correctly, the other party should be a superclass mage. I'm going out for a while. A friend of mine is in trouble. Tangmao said while signaling Apis. Although Apis was very reluctant, she still left here secretly at his signal. And Edie hurriedly asked, do you want me to go with you? No, it's a small matter. When they come back, just say I went out for something. Tangmao refused. What a joke. He dared to let Edie go with him. Let her meet Munuxu, and she will have these beautiful blue eyes to appreciate in the future. Edie saw that Tangmao was very anxious, but now he said it was a small matter, so she naturally didn't believe it. Bran Ki next to him also said, if you need any help, I can go with you. Although Bran Ki didn't like Tangmao very much, she was willing to help when there was something, and if she could. It's nothing. It's better for you not to get involved in this matter. Tangmao still refused. What a joke. What's the difference between Edie and Brank? No one can go with them. As soon as he finished speaking, Tangmao left here, and he didn't explain too much. After hearing that Tangmao didn't want them to get involved, Brank just thought it was his family's business. After all, it was only this kind of thing that Tangmao would refuse their help. After Tangmao left, Brank found that Apis had disappeared without a trace. Where did Apis go? Brank asked with some confusion. Edie paused, and then said, I just saw her go back to the house, right? Oh, Brank still pays more attention to Apis. After all, it's a bit pitiful to let Tangmao make up a story. Then he said, Edie, why don't you talk to Tangmao and let Apis go back to school with us? It's not a problem to follow Tangmao. Edie actually likes Apis very much, and is willing to let her return to Alpine Academy. She even talked about this with Tangmao, but Tangmao agreed. But Apis herself didn't want to. Tangmao agreed that she should go with us, but Apis only wanted to follow the big brother who saved her. I have told her many times that she didn't want to go back with us, but she just didn't agree. Moreover, Tangmao also persuaded her many times. Edie said helplessly. Alas, maybe it's because Tangmao saved her, so she sticks to him so much. Bran concubine said judgmentally. The two girls didn't know that Apis was very willing to go with them, but unfortunately, she was under the pressure of the contract. And Edie was obviously the one who was played. Chapter 541, Bashamul and the Gun. According to what Munuxin said, Tangmao and Apis went straight to Lanmu Mountain. Just when they arrived at the foot of the mountain, Tangmao sensed the strong magical atmosphere on the mountain. The strongest one was naturally ice magic. Immediately, a silver light emanated from his body. Although he could not teleport far away at once like Norman, with his current strength, he only needed 2 teleports to reach the place where they were fighting. Ice Plate Figure Feather Bird. Just as he arrived, he saw Muningsu falling from the sky with a somewhat majestic voice. He saw that the goose snow silver feathers that were scattered in the air, the ground, and the woods all flew into the sky, forming 9 lifelike ice feather sky birds above Muningsu. The 9 ice feather sky birds had huge wings and long feathers. After they locked onto Bashamius on the ground, they simultaneously brought a large piece of ice mist from the sky and swooped down. The ice feather skybird crashed into Bashamius. Bashamius took a step back and stomped his legs heavily on the ground. Suddenly, an umbrella-shaped iron leaf tree rose from the ground. Its thick trunk and those hard iron leaves formed a perfect protection, guarding Bashamius below. The ice feather skybird landed on the iron tree, knocking out a huge piece of frozen frost, and condensed into an amazing ball in the air. Although Bashamius resisted the dive and 0-degree impact of the ice feather skybird, there were still 8 such ice feather skybirds in the sky. Under Muningsu's command, the other 8 ice feather skybirds landed on Bashamius with a more ferocious 0-degree momentum. The larger 0-degree destruction made Bashamius a little difficult to deal with. The piercing cold penetrated into his skin, and those scattered sharp silver feathers left scars on his body, and the wounds were frozen. Bashamius was surrounded by those goose snow silver feathers. Muningsu's attack seemed to be not over yet. She stretched out her hand and pointed at the wreckage of the ice body that the ice feather skybird had hit. Suddenly, those silver feathers broke apart and fiercely shot out finer and more fragmented feather tips in all directions. The number of goose snow silver feathers was so huge, and the ice feather tips that burst at the same time were even more terrifying. A small corner could be hit by these feather tips repeatedly dozens of times. Bashamius had to call out his armor magic tools at this time. This guy's armor magic tools were also very sophisticated. This absolute 0-degree destruction plus the crazy attack of the violent feather tips only caused Bashamius to suffer some minor injuries. After Bashamius blocked Muningsu's attack, a very terrifying light energy surged from his body. The strong burning light even vaporized all the goose snow ice feathers around him. Star maps were drawn in front of him, forming constellations. The constellations were connected to each other to cast a magnificent and glorious star palace. Go to hell. After Bashamius successfully condensed the light superclass magic, he blasted towards the place where Muningsu and Jiangyu were. Shengju is the most powerful skill among the superclass without any auxiliary. Muningsu and Jiangyu were obviously unable to resist it. Just when the two were about to fight, Tangmao appeared in front of them. Similarly, Zunu and Yanji also appeared together, and as for Apis, she was left at the bottom of the mountain. There was no way. The situation was urgent. How could he bring her up with him? The tip of the sword of the Trial of Demons descended, and the light coronas like the sun spread out, which were clearly visible in the entire sky. After seeing this, Zunu directly condensed layers of thick ice shields. Yanji merged into Tangmao's body. Skyflame Funeral Fiery Hellfire Dragon. After Zunu performed the defense, Tangmao's 4 soul fires appeared around his body at the same time, and then in the constellation, the sea of fire rose to the sky, and one of the fire dragons rose up and went straight to the sword of light. Boom. After the fire dragon hit the lightsaber and offset part of its power, the flames rushed through the sky, while the lightsaber continued to blast towards Tangmao and others. Boom. After the flames dispersed most of its power, even if the lightsaber fell, its power was weakened too much. Of course, if his skills were not group-wide and single target, it would not be difficult to disperse the power of the lightsaber, even if it was just high-level magic. After all, his fire was only second to thunder in terms of destruction. Bashamius was completely dumbfounded when he saw this scene. He could naturally feel that the other party was casting high-level magic, but he also found something wrong. The level of the other party's high-level magic was actually level 5. The enhancement of more than 200 stars, plus 4 kinds of top-grade sulfur? While he was shocked, Tangmao had already drawn the Star Palace. As for Sulu's affairs, he actually didn't want to get involved too much. After all, Black Dragon himself had no chance to make a contract, even if he was demonized. Without a position, everything was nothing. However, since Muningsu had gotten involved, he naturally couldn't sit back and watch. Instead of guarding against others causing trouble, it's better to take the initiative. He never liked to be beaten passively. Thunder Halberd. Zingancheng. Thunder Halberd appeared. When Bashamius saw the huge Thunder Halberd, he was covered in cold sweat. He immediately took out all his defensive means. There was no other way. If he ran away now, he would definitely not be able to escape. Just after all his defenses were arranged, the Thunder Halberd rushed down. Boom. Rumble as a domineering Thunder Halberd descended. The area around it was almost instantly blasted into nothingness. Fortunately, Tang Mao and Muningsu were both wine type, and the snow girl carried Jiang Yu, and with the protection of Tang Mao's Thunder Domain, they were considered safe. As for Bashamius, even if he was given 9 lives, he would definitely be completely dead. The same is true for the beautiful Blue Dusk Mountain, which was almost destroyed. Fortunately, when Muningsu and the others were fighting, the people who were admiring here ran away, otherwise, their fate would definitely be the same. Seeing that Tang Mao's thunder almost destroyed the Blue Dusk Mountain, Jiang Yu, who was covered in wounds, opened his mouth, but didn't know what to say. When he was training in the government, although Tang Mao's thunder system was very strong, he had never seen him show it like this. All along, they only thought that Tang Mao's flames were terrifying. Of course, even the current fire system is still very shocking. However, when the thunder fell, Jiang Yu found that compared with the thunder system, the fire system was also slightly inferior. Muningsu also paused, and then said, even if you don't use this kind of destruction magic, he is not your opponent, right? He has hurt you, how can I let him live? Although he said so, in fact, it is better to say that he was full of anger on the way here. This anger naturally came from Ashiruaya, that foxy woman. But, even if he knew, could he still kill her? Not to mention, that Ashiruaya's trump card was not weak. Even if she was very weak, could Tang Mao do it? He obviously couldn't do it. And this Bashamius can only say that he was unlucky, who told him to run into himself who was full of anger. As for this Blue Dusk Mountain, who can say that he destroyed it? But, with his death, we don't know where to look for clues. Muningsu is still more concerned about those baby hearts. This culprit is at large, she really can't stand it. If you want to know where those baby hearts went, I can take you there. Tang Mao knew that, if she didn't let her face the reality, she would probably continue to investigate foolishly. After all, this happened in Phenio City. Although Yugsu Town is not under the jurisdiction of Phenio City, it is also settled in Phenio City. You know? Muningsu paused. Jiang Yu also looked very confused. After all, there were obstacles everywhere in the investigation of this matter. I know, and I can tell you very clearly that, even if we know who the mastermind behind the scenes is, we have no way to deal with him. Tang Mao continued. Isn't Sulu the mastermind of all this? But the person who did everything was not him. So, as long as he is fine, then his subordinates will be fine. So even if the mastermind is found, what's the point? If that's the case, forget it. Although Muningsu was very unwilling, but Tang Mao said so, it was obvious that the other party's power might be really overwhelming. Can they really provoke him? It's too late. We are already trapped. If we don't face it, there will always be trouble in the future. Tang Mao shook his head. Chapter 540 To the Effect of Dusk Flower. After hearing what Tang Mao said, Jiang Yu said with some pain in his balls, is there no way for us to get out of this? To be honest, he was really panicking now. When his elders tried to dissuade him, he should have stopped. But curiosity killed the cat, and Muningsu, who had been training with him, asked for help, so he did not listen to the advice. It was possible that Tang Mao, who was fearless, would say something that this person could not shake. Jiang Yu did not dare to think about what level that was. Except for disappearing from this world, it is just a hard fight. Tang Mao said lightly. Jiang Yu almost cried when he heard this. These two choices seemed to be dead ends, right? He was a little puzzled. Since Tang Mao knew everything, why did he still kill him? Muningsu said directly, then why do you have to kill him? According to what you said, Bashamius is actually just an insignificant pawn. Killing him will only bring us revenge, right? Don't you think that, if you don't kill him, there will be no problem? Tang Mao asked back. Both of them were silent for a while. Obviously, since they started investigating this matter and traced it here, all this has been inevitable. Do we really have to go? Jiang Yu hesitated for a moment and then asked with some stammering, you should tell me who he is. In this way, I can also be mentally prepared. His name is Sulu. Tang Mao said in a light voice. Sulu? The Dubei chief of the Asian Magic Association? Hearing this, Jiang Yu swallowed his saliva. It's not that he is timid, but he never thought that the matter he was involved in would be related to Sulu! Sulu. That's one of the top big names in the world. Wanting to kill him, isn't it as simple as pinching an ant to death? It's over. It's really over this time. That is, in the air. Otherwise Jiang Yu should have sat on the ground at this time. Don't worry, it's okay. Besides, you can leave now. Seeing that your Bashamius is dead, even if there is really something that offends Sulu, you can completely stay out of it. Tang Mao smiled and said. Jiang Yu was stunned. Seeing that Tang Mao didn't look like he was joking, he really wanted to agree. After all, Sulu was not someone that a small character like him could offend. Even his teacher might not be able to protect him. But, just leave like that? Jiang Yu was also a little hesitant. After all, Tang Mao and the others were obviously friends worth making. Otherwise, why would he and Muningsu investigate until now? Don't worry, Jiang Yu, I'm not joking. If Muningsu and I go, he won't do anything, and he may not come to retaliate later. But if you go with him, if he wants to make trouble that day, I may not be able to help you. So, you should go back to China now, and forget about what happened here. Tang Mao seemed to understand what he was thinking, and said in a calm voice. Jiang Yu was puzzled and asked, how can you be sure that you can be safe? If it was Sulu, it would be too easy to kill you. Even if it was because of your reputation, I would not touch you openly. But what about the hidden arrows? In China, there is no place that can compare to Yuxu town in terms of security. Believe me, I'm not kidding you. Tang Mao said again. At this time, he happened to see Apis. Obviously, she didn't catch up when the mountain was destroyed just now. But fortunately, there would be no damage. However, what surprised Tang Mao was that this little girl actually walked towards the destroyed place. If that's the case, I'll leave. I hope you can return home safely. Jiang Yu didn't hesitate after seeing Tang Mao said so. Tang Mao gestured, and the snow girl immediately took him to a safe place and flew away. Jiang Yu was sent away from here, and Muningsu said, are you really okay? If she were herself, she would naturally not be afraid of anything. Just for this matter, she was really angry. Even if the other party was a very influential person in Asia, Muningsu was not afraid at all. But not being afraid doesn't mean you can really do anything to him. Not to mention him, even the great speaker Xiao Zhen can't do it. Wasn't it Sulu who vetoed the coastline defense? Even if Sulu later admitted that it was his mistake, what's the use? What should be lost has been lost. And Sulu is still in a high position. It's okay. When have I ever lied to you? Tang Mao said confidently. Whether it's under the reputation or his own trump card, Tang Mao is not afraid of Sulu at all. Even if he is really hated, he will not do it openly. As for secretly in Yuxu town, without a few forbidden spells to unite, it is almost impossible to make Tang Mao pay the price. Even if he goes out, not everyone can hurt him. Maybe he can't beat a decent demon emperor, but even if he is a forbidden spell mage, he is still not afraid after being demonized. Then where are we going now? Muningsu said again. Tang Mao thought about it and decided that he couldn't go back to the hotel. Otherwise, let's not talk about what will happen next. There will probably be a fire in the backyard. Let's find a place nearby and take a rest. Tang Mao said. Just when Tang Mao was about to ask Apis to leave, the Killing Jade suddenly reacted. And the place where this reaction pointed was exactly where Apis was. Wait for me first, I'll go down and take a look. After saying that, Tang Mao flew down. Although Muningsu was curious, she was still quite obedient. At this time, the snow girl had sent Jiang Yu away from here and floated back. After seeing that it was only Muningsu, the snow girl seemed to be asking where Tang Mao had gone. He went downstairs. We just need to wait for him here. Muningsu actually guessed this way. She was not too unfamiliar with the snow girl, and because she absorbed Tang Mao's power, she could also have a simple communication with the snow girl. The snow girl seemed to understand, and then looked at Muningsu, raised her little hand, and a pure ice attribute rushed into her body. Muningsu did not refuse. She was sure that the other party would not hurt her. When the snow girl's ice attribute rushed into her body, the place that was invaded by the cold air during the previous battle with Bashamius instantly lost its feeling. Of course, she herself is an ice attribute mage, and after suppressing it, the effect is not too obvious. However, the snow girl is a favorite of the ice element. Before, she didn't pay attention, because she had to carry Jiang Yuan guard against her father's thunder. Now that everything is calm, she immediately found something wrong. After the snow girl's pure ice attribute power was input, Muningsu felt a lot more relaxed. Looking at the snow girl, she whispered, "Thank you, little guy." Although the snow girl is no longer the little girl she used to be, Muningsu is still used to calling her like this. Although the snow girl is not willing to contact any human except Tang Mao, Muningsu, who has some of their ice attribute power, is not rejected. At this time, at the foot of the destroyed mountain, Tang Mao followed the guidance of Killin, and saw Apis holding a flower in a daze. He took it casually, and asked in confusion, "What kind of flower is this? It seems very precious." "It's called dusk flower." Although Apis was dissatisfied with Tang Mao's behavior, she still responded honestly. There was no way. If she didn't answer well, she would be tortured again if she was discovered. She didn't like that strange feeling. The people here actually just use it to beautify the scenery, but they don't know that this dusk flower has the power of vitality, but it is only helpful to us monsters, and it is useless to you as a human. Apis continued. The reason why she was not afraid of being robbed by Tang Mao was because she knew that Tang Mao had no use for this thing. Of course, in fact, she didn't have much use. After all, this was for the kind of monsters that were dead but not dead. "I'm useless, but you are useless too." While Tang Mao was speaking, he had already fed it to Killin Yu. Obviously, this thing was definitely of great help to it. Otherwise, why would it be so excited? After seeing the dusk flower that she had found being taken away by Tang Mao, Apis gnashed her teeth. This damn man is such a bastard. No matter what it is, he always likes to steal it from me. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 543. Confused people live longer. That is to say, this thing is useless to her, otherwise, she would have to pay for another night. Oh, or even several nights. When looking for a place to rest, Muningsu finally knew that Tang Mao had contracted another elemental pet during this period of time, and it was a Medusa that looked like a human! Exclamation mark. It's better not to go to a forbidden place like the Sahara Desert in the future. It's too dangerous, Muningsu said breathlessly. Even though she was a little absent-minded because of something, she still did not forget to persuade Tang Mao. "I won't go. But you, if you don't tell me next time, it won't be as simple as today." Muningsu, who was beaten, just looked at Tang Mao without saying a word. "This is to make you remember." "Huh, I know." Seeing Tang Mao raised his hand again, Muningsu had to give in. She was already a little lost. If she was beaten a few more times, she might not be able to do anything tomorrow. After all, for some reason, it's good to know, considering that you changed after eating wrong. Tang Mao seemed to be very energetic, bending down and approaching Muningsu and said. But Tang Mao had no intention of sympathizing with women. After all, today he found out that it was not because of Hidi. Of course, he was not weak in the past, but compared with now, it was a little worse. If Muningsu knew Tang Mao's thoughts, she would definitely tell him the difference between the past and now is not a little bit. The next day, although they rested in the early morning, they were still energetic when they woke up in the morning. Immediately, they set off and headed for the Tyrant Mountains in Italy. This ceremony could not be completed in 1 or 2 days. Moreover, facing the Black Dragon Emperor. If they had not found the weakness to restrain its dragon breath, these people would really be a little bit weak. But nature is fair. Dragons are powerful. Without some restraint, where would there be room for human survival? Although Sulu is a person who does all kinds of evil, standing at his height, he only looks at success or failure, and there is no good or bad. Moreover, among the top human forces in the world, the only one who dares to challenge the real dragon is probably the one in front of him. Although he has also found the opponent's weakness and came here to conquer it, how many others would make the effort to provoke the real dragon? The two were sitting on a Sky Eagle monster of Tangmao. This Sky Eagle was also given special treatment by Tangmao. Although it was only used for transportation, it was the one who got the most in the dimensional space except Ziohei. It was even a demon at the commander level now. They entered the mountainous area with layers upon layers at a very fast speed. The terrain here became higher, and the sky was not as clean as before at the edge of the Mediterranean. Instead, it was covered by a layer of thick cumulus clouds at a higher altitude. It was difficult to see the sun, but because it was too empty, they could always catch a glimpse of the lightning that split to the bottom. Whoosh! Just as they continued to move forward, a gust of wind suddenly rushed down, and then a middle-aged man appeared in front of them. His cultivation was very high, and even Tangmao could not tell what strength the other party had. Stay, I'm from the Magic Association. There will be a big battle here. If you have something to do here, please do it another day. A middle-aged man who suddenly appeared at a height of 10 meters, looked at the two people and introduced themselves, and then stopped them from moving forward. What battle? We are here to find out one thing, based on some clues. So many baby hearts were sent here. I want to know who is the unscrupulous person who did it. Tangmao said coldly as he looked at the man in front of him. There is no baby heart you are looking for here, but the ceremony we are about to hold here is built with the heart of a young titan. The middle-aged man said, if you don't believe it, you can go with me to see it, but it's best not to do anything extreme. Of course, you can't do anything out of the ordinary in front of me. If you don't want to watch this feast, please leave on your own. Do you know Bashamius? Tangmao said again. I know the internationally wanted criminal. If it weren't for the ceremony here, I would be the one responsible for tracking him down. The middle-aged man said with a hint of sarcasm. Do you have any news about him? Oh, unfortunately, that lackey bumped into me and got in the way, so I killed him. Tangmao looked at him. After he finished speaking, the middle-aged man smiled indifferently, but he was not surprised at all. Then he said, really? Then you have done a great deed. According to some information I have learned, Bashamius seems to have been doing evil all the time. Recently, he even targeted some babies. If you hadn't solved it, I would have found him and solved it myself. As he said that, he looked at Tangmao. Speaking of which, you have also made contributions. You are already a superclass mage at such a young age. It's really a hero born in youth. After seeing that, he was not surprised at all. Tangmao realized that he must have been nearby when he solved Bashamius. It's a pity that he didn't notice it. This also means that the other party's strength is at least superclass level 3. Then Tangmao sneered and said with a hint of sarcasm, a meritorious service. Killing a worthless waste is considered a meritorious service. Moreover, you have already investigated. Did you only get the news yesterday? Although he knew that Bashamius would be abandoned, he did not expect that Bashamius, who was killed by him, would directly take all the blame. Moreover, the most important thing now is that there is no evidence. Oh. Could it be that this matter is not as simple as I thought? The middle-aged man said again. But he didn't come to report anything, and since the other party drove them away, it meant that the abandoned person took all the responsibility. As for them, they should leave wisely and everyone would be fine. Tangmao said immediately, forget it, I don't want to dwell on this anymore. We are all sensible people, and it's a waste of time to say too much. Since your magic association is already investigating this matter, we won't intervene. The man was also very satisfied with Tangmao's tactfulness. Well, you can rest assured. Although the matter has already happened and cannot be changed, once we verify it, we will definitely give the victims' families a satisfactory answer. Muningsu heard that Tangmao meant not to go up. so she asked with some doubts, "Shall we leave?" "Let's go. The people of the Magic Association have taken action, so naturally we are not needed." Tang Mao looked at him like he didn't tell Sulu, and it didn't matter to these people whether Bashamius lived or died. Since there was no need to form a bond and no justice could be sought, leaving was obviously the wisest thing to do. As for whether Sulu would be sanctioned, what did it have to do with him? He is not a senior official of the country. There are some things that he should not be involved in. He did not want to get involved in it. Who knew that Muningsu was fooled by Asharuaya? If not, he should have returned to the country by now. Then Tang Mao took Muningsu away. As for the Magic Association mage who intercepted them, he also left when they disappeared from sight. In fact, he was also present when Tang Mao dealt with Bashamius, but Tang Mao's thunder system was too terrifying. After completing the depiction of the Star Palace, the magic destructive power caused was so great that even Tang Mao, who had a much higher cultivation level than Tang Mao, could not handle it. So in the end, he hid in the dark. His talent was to have a state of hiding without magic aura. This was why even with Tang Mao's mental power, he did not notice the other party's existence. As for why he knew to come here, that was naturally because he had been following the two of them. But when he came here, he was also a little surprised. He didn't understand how Tang Mao and the others knew about this place. Wasn't the news a little too well informed? However, no matter what, he thought it was better to block this matter if he could. It's nothing that Bashamul died, but if Sulu knew that they were discovered and some influential people checked something, it would be quite troublesome. Sulu, the chief of Dubai in Asia, would naturally be fine, and Sulu's subordinates were continental bosses, so naturally they would be fine. After all, they were in such high positions. But it's different for those of them who seem to be very powerful to outsiders. Their status is not the top ones, but they are just dogs under the upper ones. If they get caught in the end, wouldn't it be ridiculous? In addition, Tang Mao had already killed Bashamul, which gave him a chance to die without any evidence, and sent them away in the name that the Magic Association was making a big move here, and outsiders were not allowed to enter. Fortunately, he was sensible, and left just like that. Although everyone knows it, sometimes those who can pretend to be confused are the ones who live longer. Chapter 544, Sulu's Ambitions. After going down the mountain, Tang Mao paused, then called out Xiao Fengji, and handed it to her. He looked at Muningsu beside him and said, "Take Xiao Fengji away first. I'll go take a look, and then find you guys later." As long as Fengji was by his side, he would definitely find Muningsu wherever she went. Even if he encountered any danger, he could sense it immediately through telepathy with Xiao Fengji. "What are you going to do?" Muningsu asked Tang Mao in confusion. "To see the demeanor of a real dragon." Tang Mao replied. Speaking of which, when he came here with Asharuaya, he didn't really see it. After all, he was too insignificant at the time. Since he had the opportunity today, he should go and see it. Muningsu said worriedly, "I don't want you to go. If you really want to go, I will go with you. My ice crystal bow can fight even against a superclass mage. Before you step into the superclass, the ice crystal bow will only consume your soul to explode. Do you think I need you to fight with me at the cost of your life?" Without waiting for Muningsu to say anything, Tang Mao continued, "Besides, with my shadow system and space abilities, if I just go to take a look, I won't be discovered. Don't worry." Muningsu knew that she couldn't persuade Tang Mao, so she chose to remain silent. "Take Xiao Fengji away. Believe me, I'm just going to take a look," Tang Mao said again. Muningsu knew that Tang Mao was determined to go, and she had no chance to stop him. In the end, she could only say, "Then you have to be careful." "Don't worry." After responding, a black mist swirled around Tang Mao, and then he disappeared on the spot. Fengji obediently lay on Muningsu's shoulder. Like Yanji, she was not afraid of humans. There was no hostility. Of course, the main reason was that Tang Mao asked it to follow Muningsu. Walking towards the giant mountain range, Tang Mao looked around. He was still a little puzzled until now. The man who appeared before was really scary. He could hide his breath without hostility. Even he couldn't find it. Gradually reaching the highest point of the mountain range, there was a mountaintop full of jagged ridges. The entire mountaintop was long and looked like the back of a dragon. On the other side of the slowly rising mountaintop was a long cliff standing above the clouds, like a road to the kingdom of God, majestic and lonely. When he slowly stopped in the distance, he found that there were many people on the cliff. Most of these people were wearing robes of the Magic Association. From the emblems inlaid on the robes, it can be seen that these people all hold important positions in the Magic Association. Among these people, the guy who just blocked the road was also here. At this time, it seemed that the ceremony was about to be completed. Sulu was walking towards the top of the cloud bank with a proud look. In the past, people on the European continent called dragons a disaster. That was because dragons were too powerful, so powerful that all the efforts of a tribe or a country would be destroyed overnight. From that time on, people hoped that a power belonging to humans would descend and be able to compete head-on with dragons. Then, people mastered magic. However, after they had their own power, they fully realized how powerful dragons were. Magic was just a breeze and weak waves in front of them. Even the super level power that people admired could not penetrate the dragon scales on the dragon's body. So no matter what level the magic civilization developed to, even now, the ancient dragons are still so powerful that they are sacred and inviolable. Fortunately, the laws of nature never favor any race too much. The reproductive capacity of ancient dragons is almost zero. Those dragons mentioned by people in the world are actually all sub-dragons and mixed dragons. So they dare to call themselves dragon slayers. The dragon under my feet is a real dragon. It has its own name, its own history, and its supreme dragon power. This wish of people from ancient times to the present, I, Sulu, will not only fulfill it, but also make the real dragons completely degraded to the lower races of humans. The ancient gods, ancient demons, ancient monsters. It is not them that dominate this world, but us humans. Sulu stood on Unaya, standing on the top of the Tyrant Mountains, which is extremely high in Europe. His words were full of power, and seemed to be able to spread throughout the continent. After his lofty words, some of the bigwigs of the Asian Magic Association present here expressed their congratulations. It seemed that they all saw the scene of Sulu dominating the world in the future from this ceremony of conquering the real dragon. If Sulu could control the 5 continents, then these people, to put it simply, would be the ministers of the dragon! Exclamation mark. Although there were few major battles between humans, because of the spread of monsters everywhere, it was not unheard of. However, a man like Sulu, who has huge ambitions, is only the first one at present. When Tangmao was observing the surroundings, he suddenly found that at the top of the side peak of the Tyrant Mountains, a man in a night leather jacket stood quietly. He stared at the ever-changing sky in the distance, and his deep eyes revealed a bit of determination. This man is naturally Norman of the Parthenon. As one of the people who knew the Black Dragon, it was not surprising for Tangmao to appear here. Rumble. At this moment, after a ceremony was opened, the entire mountain range trembled. Not just one mountain range, but the entire Tyrant Mountains were completely shaken. Roar. Then, a sound that seemed to explode the sky and shatter the mountains came out. Even though he had been prepared, Tangmao still felt that he was about to lose consciousness. This is a kind of auditory and mental torture. Even the frontline fighters in this world looked painful, but no one knew what they used. The painful look came and went quickly. The next moment, a huge claw descended, and the mountaintop was shattered in an instant. There was an amazing claw mark in one place, and the area that had extended a large area of rocks completely disappeared. The sea of clouds was originally a vast expanse of white, covering everything under the mountaintop. At this moment, countless holes appeared in the clouds, and they were stirred beyond recognition. In the higher sky, thousands of black destructive lights rushed down, forming a wide-ranging impact. The mountain was huge, with peaks connected to peaks. Almost every black destructive light that fell could break the peaks in the Tyrant Mountains. For a while, the majestic and steep Tyrant Mountains seemed to be flattened a little. At the moment, when the Black Dragon appeared, Tangmao retreated a little in order not to be affected. Although this would make people notice it, Sulu only had the Black Dragon in his eyes. Even if he discovered the breath coming out, he would not care at all. The dark destructive light came from the top of the sky. At this height, the air would become extremely cold. Even some powerful magicians would be frozen into ice soon. In this extremely cold sky with a few dome lights that alternate between day and night, a black dragon spread its frightening flesh wings. It was like a part of the night, covering all the magicians on the mountain. The mighty spirit that dominated the sky and the earth was enough to make the souls of the tiny people below tremble. The dragon's wings blocked the stars and the moon, and the dragon's body dominated the sky. It was a black dragon's tail. Half of it fell under the clouds, and the other half was hidden in the clouds. It was difficult for people to describe this powerful body and the concept of Shenwu. It was completely from another universe. If Sulu hadn't learned about the weakness of the black dragon, no matter when it came, no one would dare to challenge such a huge monster, right? But what made Tang Mao feel strange was that Norman, who was also hiding here, not only did not retreat, but also went to Sulu. Our chance has come. When Sulu saw the black dragon constantly absorbing, he laughed. It seemed that at the moment it absorbed, Sulu was sure that the other party could not spit out. Under the cliffs on the top of the mountain, dark green gas floated up, and they formed a worm shape, which did not disperse even under the powerful sea-absorbing breath. These worm-like gases were quickly taken into the abdomen of the Black Dragon Emperor. It can be seen that this strange dark green color suddenly appeared in the chest of the Black Dragon Emperor. Then, the dragon flame seemed to emerge, but when the green gas emerged, the Black Dragon Emperor realized that his wave of dragon breath that bombarded everything could not be sprayed out. Countless flames gushed out from the gap between the dragon teeth of the Black Dragon Emperor, but the most powerful dragon flame did not appear as expected. The dragon flame that was about to destroy the world was inexplicably choked, causing the Black Dragon land to howl in discomfort. After seeing this scene, Sulu laughed wildly, as if the world was about to be conquered by him. His crazy look almost made people feel that he was a psychopath. Chapter 545 Black Dragon Emperor. After the Black Dragon Emperor was sealed of his dragon breath, Sulu ordered his men to prepare for the forbidden spell ceremony. He could also release the forbidden spell magic alone, but his forbidden spell magic alone was not enough to fight against the Black Dragon. Moreover, if he could really hurt the Black Dragon, why would it take so long to set up? The arrangement ceremony here could not be done in a few days or months. It took several years. The Black Dragon Emperor was also the top fighter in the world. Even if he lost his dragon breath and waited for him to recover, they could not do anything to him. This was why the forbidden spell ceremony was set up here. This forbidden spell formation not only had the power to severely damage the Black Dragon, but also had the ability of the contract that Sulu had already set up. If he wanted to contract the Black Dragon Emperor, the ordinary contract method would naturally not work. After all, it was not enough for him to make a dragon surrender. The Black Dragon Emperor kept trying to spit out dragon flames, but he found that he couldn't do it no matter what. However, there are demons in this world that can resist the claws of the Black Dragon Emperor, but they are too few. As for the devices on them, there is no need to think about them. Although they are all fine products, they are just stripped from some monarchs. It is already a top grade product to be able to withstand a blow without dying. However, it is almost impossible to withstand the claws of the Black Dragon Emperor and continue to fight. This time, 2 died and several were injured. Seeing this, everyone dared not slack off in the slightest, as if they might become the dead souls under the claws if the forbidden spell ceremony was not started. Humph, without the dragon breath, you are just a little bigger than the monarch creature. I will peel these dragon scales for you bit by bit. Sulu finished speaking and started to do it himself. It took no effort for Super Sister's magic to be drawn in his hands, and soon the Star Palace was condensed. After the tyrannical thunder condensed, it rushed towards the Black Dragon Emperor. He was not sympathizing with his subordinates, but he still needed them to complete the forbidden spell ceremony for him. Otherwise, what did their life and death have to do with him? Sulu. As the chief of Dubainasia, Sulu's configuration is naturally not bad. Although the degree of destruction of this thunder is not as terrifying as that of Tang Mao, in terms of superclass magic, the damage is absolutely against the sky. Boom boom. Under his bombardment, some damage appeared on the dragon scales of the Black Dragon Emperor. When they saw that Sulu's attack caused some minor damage to the black dragon, a group of flatterers under his command cheered one by one. Those who were preparing for the ceremony were still preparing for the ceremony, and those who were responsible for restraining the black dragon seemed to have found confidence, and they kept coming forward to harass the black dragon. For a while, various superclass magics were constantly performed. However, even if several of them, or even more than 10 people, joined forces to attack, they found that the Black Dragon Emperor was still the Black Dragon Emperor. Even if they jointly bombed, it was just some minor trauma. If the dragon breath had not been sealed, if the forbidden spell ceremony had not been prepared long ago, maybe they would have no confidence to support it now, right? Although Sulu is terrible, the Black Dragon Emperor is also terrible. Ayo how. However, with Sulu's help, their pressure was much less. At least Sulu's magic could cause damage to the Black Dragon Emperor. In addition, the Black Dragon Emperor had been tricked and was entangled by the ritual that could restrain it. He originally wanted to smash these tiny humans, but now he couldn't do it at all. Beast, don't surrender. Sulu looked at the struggling Black Dragon Emperor and shouted angrily. After hearing Sulu shout, the Black Dragon Emperor's dragon eyes were filled with angry flames. Obviously, it also knew very well that it was all the work of the human in front of it. If it weren't for it, how could these trembling people dare to provoke? However, just when it wanted to pounce on Sulu with all its strength, it found that a series of moon-white lights suddenly appeared in the sky. The light was naturally produced from the forbidden spell ritual. Ha. When Sulu saw the light light up, he was like crazy, laughing wantonly. Exclamation mark. It was as if he had seen the black dragon appearing in front of the chiefs of all continents. It was as if he had seen their fearful expressions. Tang Mao looked at the mad Sulu, and then looked at Norman who was hiding in the dark, only to see that he had already disappeared from the previous place. Tang Mao was stunned, and then looked towards the place of the ceremony. Sure enough, Norman had appeared here at some point, and he had knocked out several people who were starting the forbidden spell ceremony there. Perhaps it was because of the struggle of the Black Dragon Emperor, or perhaps it was because Sulu was immersed in the joy of victory. So, it was not until Norman injured several people who started the ceremony and destroyed a light that Sulu realized something was wrong. Exclamation mark. Norman, you are looking for death. After seeing this scene, Sulu shouted immediately. This roar, the people present, and those who wanted to serve Sulu in this area, were all completely stunned. Norman was not afraid at all, and still did not stop. And because of the destruction of a place, the Black Dragon Emperor once again desperately flapped his huge flesh wings and tossed them. Sulu rushed over. Norman knew that his strength was definitely top-notch in the superclass, but compared with Sulu, he was still far behind. Moreover, this place was already destroyed, so he turned around and fled without thinking. Chapter 546 Norman takes action. Sulu is a master of space, but Norman is not bad in space either. Otherwise, even if there was no difference in the first time, the few people here would not be so easily dealt with by him. When Sulu rushed over in anger, Norman had already fled here, and Sulu had no choice but to continue to suppress the Black Dragon. You know, after this ceremony was destroyed, let alone let the Black Dragon Emperor surrender, he was afraid that he could not suppress the other party kill him for me. However, Sulu could not do it himself, which did not mean that Norman could escape. You have to know that the people here are all Sulu's lackeys, and they are the top leaders of the Asian Magic Association. How could their strength be worse? Ferren Long, one of the main lackeys working for Sulu, rushed up with several superclass mages at the first time. Norman originally wanted to destroy a ceremony. After all, this forbidden spell ceremony does not cause any harm to people. It is specially used to deal with demons. As long as he can destroy one place, then, even if Sulu fights for his life, he can't do anything to the Black Dragon Emperor. Although the Black Dragon Emperor, whose dragon breath was sealed, seemed insignificant in Sulu's mouth, he still relied on this forbidden spell ritual. Question mark? Otherwise, it would be too easy for the Black Dragon Emperor to crush them. Unfortunately, when he wanted to approach the second forbidden spell ritual, he was surrounded by Ferren Long and others who reacted. Looking at the forbidden spell ritual, no matter which place, dozens of strong men gathered in an instant. Here, they may not be as strong as Norman in a single fight, but they are not much weaker than him. With so many people joining forces, how could he rush over if he wanted to? At this time, Farron Long had already ordered everyone to work together. For a while, the star palaces spread all over the sky. Although these star palaces were nothing in front of the huge body of the Black Dragon Emperor, their destructive power was not bad at all. These people may not be very strong against demons, but when dealing with his kind, they are like masters from the outside world. The light was as bright as the sun, the waves of fire were like volcanic eruptions, and all kinds of superclass magics were constantly condensed in their hands, and then they were all blasted towards Norman. Norman's space magic was indeed almost close to the top. Facing so many superclass magics, or the destruction magic cast in their strongest fields, he actually used the powerful force of space to block it. This scene made Farron Long and his people unbelievable. But that's the fact. However, Norman had already used up all his strength to resist the front, and at the same time, 2 waves of fire rushed straight at him from behind. Boom. He had no ability to resist the attack of the fire wave, but the golden magic tools on his body were also top notch. Even with the impact of the fire wave, he still didn't fall. Instead, he took advantage of the impact of the fire wave to avoid this group of people in an instant, and rushed towards the ritual site closest to him. As long as he broke through one place, Sulu alone could not control the situation. When Sulu saw this scene, his eyes almost popped out and he roared, "Waste, you bunch of waste, kill him, kill him." At this moment, he no longer had the high-spirited feeling that the world was in his hands. He no longer looked down on the Black Dragon Emperor. Instead, he wanted to take action himself and take Norman down. After hearing Sulu's roar, the others panicked. Then no one held back, and all kinds of auxiliary magic tools and wing magic tools that increased speed were displayed in an instant. Death axis of space. At the moment of rushing over, the space flashed continuously, and a special space point appeared at the position where Norman stayed. Soon these different space axis points formed a silver stunning roulette. A shaft of light that was like the finger of the god of death in the brilliant and bright light suddenly penetrated through and rushed straight to the few people in front. Wall of space. One of the space magicians had a deep understanding of the horror of this light, especially when it was Norman, a famous master of the space system. He resisted with all his strength. The other people also took defensive postures to resist the impact of the light. But when the beam hit, they found that the attack power was almost non-lethal. Not good. After blocking the attack, the space mage immediately realized that something was wrong. He looked up and saw Norman. When he turned around, he saw that Norman had already gone to the ceremony. Everyone knew that the reason why the Black Dragon was harmless was that it was trapped by the forbidden spell formation. However, once the formation was broken, all the arrangements would be wasted, and they would only have one result, that is, they would all die! Exclamation mark. So when they saw Norman rushing over, several people once again brewed their strongest superclass magic and chased after him. Originally, there was no way to stop this kind of attack. After all, Norman had already rushed over, and he would not stand there stupidly to be beaten. But in front of him, the person who arranged the forbidden spell also took action. They were the last line of defense guarding here, although they were indeed not Norman's opponents, and it could even be said that no one in the world who was not a forbidden spell mage could be his opponent. However, they are also extremely powerful in their respective fields, and they can still do it by delaying. Although Norman wanted to rush over directly, facing the superclass magic bombardment of the two, he could only choose to resist. It was because of this resistance that several superclass destructive forces rushed over at the same time. Boom. Tang Mao, who was far away, looked at the scene in front of him and had a different evaluation of Norman. Norman was very strong, especially his space system, which was almost at his will. Even when he was bombarded by several top superclass mages, he was able to resist and counterattack at the same time, and even the silver light radiating from his body reduced the damage to the minimum. However, with him alone, defeat was only a matter of time. That Black Dragon is asking for help. Can you go and help it? Just when Tang Mao was about to leave, Apis, who had sneaked out at some point, spoke. What a joke. He's already like this now, and you want me to help him? Tang Mao pouted. Moreover, if I go up to help, who knows if the Black Dragon Emperor will bite back. After all, it should be extremely irritable right now. PS. I will update more tomorrow for awards. Chapter 547. Destroying the Forbidden Spell Ceremony. Added for awards. Although Apis didn't know this Black Dragon, as a true overlord, she really couldn't stand being plotted against like this. Moreover, she once again deeply realized the horror of humans. Even though their strength was not very strong in front of the big demon, however, they were still able to compete. The Black Dragon Emperor was definitely the strongest big demon that Apis had seen so far. But what she didn't expect was that even a powerful one like it would be tricked by humans. The most terrifying thing was that the crazy person actually wanted to control the Black Dragon Emperor and become his master? Question mark? If the Black Dragon Emperor was really controlled by that person, even if it couldn't use dragon breath, its power would be unmatched. Apis said again. Then why do you think I can help it? Look at the other side's loop. Is this something I can handle? Or can you handle it? Tang Mao pointed helplessly at the superclass mages around the Black Dragon Emperor. Why did he kill him without using demons? Demons are used to save lives, not to pay for black dragons. But if Sulu gets the Black Dragon, it will be a troublesome thing indeed. It is certainly not impossible to subdue it by himself, but if he can help Norman destroy the ritual, it is not impossible. However, there are too many strong people here. Even if his contracted pet and himself go together, they may not be able to rescue him. Moreover, after doing so, he will definitely be completely opposed to Sulu. I can try to distract the people who control the forbidden spell ritual there, and you take the opportunity to destroy it. Once the Black Dragon breaks free, we will take advantage of the chaos to leave. Believe me, it will not hurt us. Apis said again. After listening to what Apis said, Tang Mao finally chose to agree. As long as the Black Dragon Emperor is not suppressed by the forbidden spell ritual, he will still be the world's top existence. At that time, as long as it riots, it is not impossible to take advantage of the chaos to leave. Then, he hugged Apis into his arms, and the next moment the two of them turned into black mist and disappeared here, approaching where Norman and the others were fighting. Powerful elemental magic, dimensional magic, and black magic are constantly released here. It is extremely difficult to come here. If you are not careful, you may be attacked. It is absolutely tormenting to spend time in the bombardment of superclass destruction magic. Fortunately, their attention is now on Norman, otherwise, even their own shadow system will still be noticed. Of course, in the current situation, even if they notice it, they have no time to deal with it. When he approached, the ceremony had reached the final stage. Even if he had already appeared, the several powerful mages who controlled it would not care about it at all. After seeing this scene, Tang Mao was not polite at all, and lightning flashed in his hands. Exclamation mark. Silent thunder deathlight. The constellation was formed in an instant, and then the lightning rushed straight to the two people. Those who arranged the ceremony here were all superclass strongmen. They noticed Tang Mao's appearance, but they didn't give them the opportunity to talk nonsense. The other party actually took action directly? Question mark. One of them turned around immediately, and a huge water shield emerged. Boom. However, he seemed to have underestimated the destructive power of Tang Mao's thunder. The moment the water shield intercepted it, the lightning exploded again. In an instant, the unprepared superclass mage was blown away. However, his reaction was fast enough. At the moment the thunder exploded, a set of magic tools was put on. But his companion who was struggling to support the ceremony did not react so quickly. At the moment the thunder exploded, he had no time to put on the magic tools, and was blown away. Apis looked at it stupidly from behind. It seemed that this was different from what was agreed before. Didn't he come to distract himself? Why did he come here and bombard? Tang Mao, what are you going to do? Just after Tang Mao injured two people, the elder of the East China Sea Magic Association who knew him from a distance shouted. It was really a headache to be recognized when he appeared. After all, they were exorcising monsters, and their behavior was already a crime. However, it was already out, and there was no room for regret. He could only hope that the bigwigs of the country would not add insult to injury. Xianyang Funeral Fiery Hellfire Dragon. Without giving the two superclass mages time to react, Tang Mao directly bombarded the forbidden spell ritual. Sulu, who was far away, saw it and shouted angrily, "Tang Mao, I will kill you." However, even if he was furious, he would not care at this time. Boom. The fire dragon rushed out, and the ritual exploded instantly! Exclamation mark. The huge moonlight in the sky also dissipated instantly. The black dragon, that was about to be suppressed just now, also recovered its strength in an instant, flapping its wings continuously, and Sulu's control was directly broken. The movement here naturally caught everyone's attention. Not only that, the mages who besieged Norman also looked over. The next moment, they turned around and fled without any hesitation. At the moment, Sulu's anger was no longer important. Once the forbidden spell ritual that was still arranged was gone, how could he deal with the black dragon? They were afraid that they were the delivery men. When they saw so many people running for their lives, the people who were rushing here just now also turned around and ran away. Are you kidding me? Can we stay here? Question mark. Do you really think that real dragons can be provoked by anyone? And those who are not fast enough, when the Black Dragon Emperor breaks free, he will seriously kill them with one claw. It is really too aggrieved. The moment it is released, the raging anger naturally needs to be vented. Sulu's eyes were red. When the Black Dragon Emperor dealt with the top leaders of the Asian Magic Association, he rushed to Tang Mao in person. Seeing Sulu coming, Tang Mao didn't think about it and cast various destructive magics such as fire and thunder. But Sulu's strength was obviously more terrifying than imagined. Even his space system is much better than Norman. Go, I'll stop him. Just when Tang Mao's attacks were resolved one by one, Norman, who was almost disabled, rushed over. Obviously, the people who besieged him had left. However, with his bird-like appearance, helping me deal with Sulu, isn't it a joke? Are you here to die? Tang Mao said helplessly. He knew that he couldn't run away. Although he was very unwilling, since Sulu came to fight, he had only one choice, to turn into a demon and tear him to pieces! Exclamation mark. Chapter 548 Sulu escapes. Just when Tang Mao was about to do this, the Black Dragon Emperor, who was killing people, suddenly stood in front of them. It was obvious that this big beast also knew how to repay kindness. He didn't lose too much this time. With the good relationship with the Black Dragon Emperor, even if he really encountered any trouble in the future, he would know a great demon of the Emperor level. Austin Norman saw the Black Dragon Emperor appearing in front of him, called out softly, and then fainted. It was a miracle that he didn't die, but he wanted to continue fighting. It was just his perseverance. Knowing that this guy and Ashiruaya were siblings, although he was very upset about this dead fox pitting Muningsu, he would save her if he could, and let Norman owe him a favor. If he helped the little fox in the future, he was afraid that she would not stick up obediently. TSK just thinking about it, Tang Mao felt that he couldn't let this brother-in-law die. He immediately took out the holy medicine that Ashiruaya had given him before, and then forcefully fed him all at once. As for whether there will be any side effects, he is already injured like this. What side effects can he have? Even if there are side effects, what does it have to do with him? Sulu, with red eyes and full of murderous intent, rushed over and saw the Black Dragon Emperor blocking his way, and was also stunned. At this time, he no longer looked like he had the world in his hands, but was afraid of the Black Dragon Emperor. Ayo how. The Black Dragon Emperor was full of anger towards Sulu. After all, this tiny human actually plotted against him, and the most important thing was that he almost succeeded? Question mark. Wanting to be its master, damn it. After a roar, the Black Dragon Emperor slapped over with a claw, and the place where Sulu was collapsed in an instant. However, he himself was fine, and directly used space magic to hide in the distance. Seeing this, the Black Dragon Emperor moved his huge wings, and rushed straight to Sulu. The huge body was not slow at all. In the blink of an eye, it appeared in front of Sulu. The huge claws closed in mid-air, as if to crush him into meat paste. At the same time, Sulu turned into a black shadow and avoided this irresistible attack. In a flash, he ran to the top of the cloud bank, where he was before, looked at the Black Dragon and said angrily, "Beast, do you really think I can't cure you? After the roar, Sulu began to cast the forbidden spell. In an instant, the whole sky became completely covered with dark clouds. After Tangmao saw that Sulu was about to start a big move, he took back Apis and directly dragged the unconscious Norman. The 6 wings behind him opened and flew out of the Tyrant Mountains. What a joke, the battle between the forbidden spell and the Emperor, let alone whether Sulu could do anything to the Black Dragon Emperor. The damage caused was beyond their estimation. However, just when he was about to run away with his men, the Black Dragon Emperor turned around for some reason and then surrounded the 2 of them with his huge body. The next moment, the real heaven-destroying thunder began to explode continuously on the entire Tyrant Mountain! And it was at this moment that Tangmao finally understood why the Black Dragon Emperor gave up tearing Sulu to pieces and turned back. It turned out that it was because Sulu wanted to destroy everything here. Most of the high-level members of the Magic Association escaped from Tyrant Mountain, but some did not even remember to leave. Those who did not leave, without any surprise, were blasted into slag in this continuous mountain range! After all, the entire mountain range was shattered by thunder, let alone people. This is the forbidden spell Thunder, the strongest forbidden spell attack in elemental magic. Tangmao hid under the huge body of the Black Dragon Emperor, looking at everything that was destroyed outside. He had always felt that his superclass thunder was comparable to forbidden spell magic. But after truly witnessing the forbidden magic of thunder, he realized that he had underestimated the horror of this forbidden magic. After all, even on the body of the Black Dragon with strong defense, large pieces of dragon scales kept falling one by one. The high-level members of the Asian Magic Association who were escaping for their lives did not wear the top-level defensive magic tools in time, and they were almost blasted into pieces in an instant. Of course, for the Black Dragon Emperor, this injury was nothing. After all, although the fallen dragon scales were huge, they might not even be a corner on its body. The continuous Tyrant Mountains were destroyed in half, and the demons living in these mountains were also unlucky. Even if they did not come out to move, they were still blasted into pieces because of this area. When the thunder continued, Tangmao suddenly felt the fluctuation of space magic. Looking at the place where Sulu was before, was there still his figure there? The Black Dragon Emperor also noticed Sulu, who wanted to escape, but because of the relationship between Tangmao and Norman, it could only watch him leave. Ayo how how. The deafening dragon roar continued to come out, as if the Black Dragon Emperor was venting his unwillingness. However, unlike before, it was still such a huge roar, but he didn't feel anything? After Sulu heard the roar of the Black Dragon Emperor, he originally thought that the Black Dragon Emperor had caught up, but when he saw its unwilling look, Sulu suddenly sneered, because he seemed to have seen another weakness of the Black Dragon. Of course, even when he turned back and sneered at the Black Dragon Emperor, his speed did not slow down, and the winged magic tool also used the instant movement to escape from this place. After more than 10 minutes, the dark clouds full of thunder and lightning slowly dissipated. The entire central area of Tyrant Mountain was almost completely destroyed, except for the mountain range, pressed by the huge body of the Black Dragon. It was almost a desolate scene. As for the high-level wizards of the Magic Association who died here, they were completely buried here. Forbidden spells were used, and no grass would grow for years or even decades. Fortunately, this is the Tyrant Mountains, the territory of the Demon Clan, and the impact on humans is not very big. Bang, bang. After the thunder was gone, the huge body of the Black Dragon Emperor moved, and the whole mountain range shook violently again. Roar. Then the Black Dragon Emperor looked at Tangmao and roared softly, as if to express his gratitude. As for talking to the other party, he obviously didn't know how to communicate, so he summoned Apis. After Apis appeared, the Black Dragon Emperor roared a few more times. Tangmao didn't understand at all, but Apis looked back at Tangmao, and then looked at the Black Dragon Emperor and responded, "But, won't it hurt you?" Roar. The Black Dragon Emperor shook his huge head and said something again, but it was a pity that he couldn't understand it at all. "Okay, thank you then." After another round of communication, Apis seemed to thank him, but he was confused about why. When she looked over, Tangmao hurriedly asked, "What did the Black Dragon say to you?" It said it would give you some gifts as a thank you for helping it. Humph, it's your good luck, but you have to thank me. If it weren't for me, you wouldn't be so lucky, Apis said with a little arrogance. Yes, it's all your credit. I will definitely give you more nutrients and reward you when I go back. At the moment, he was even more curious about what the Black Dragon Emperor was going to give him. As for Apis, just let her float first. However, after he heard nutritional supplements, Apis instantly looked like I didn't want to talk. It seemed that she was very repulsive to this reward. I'm talking about something that can help you improve your strength. What are you thinking about in your little head? Tang Mao looked at her refusal and said with a little funny feeling. Apis paused and hummed a little ashamedly. Could this be her fantasy? This is clearly because Tang Mao brought her too deep a memory. Otherwise, why would she be so repulsive when she heard nutritional supplements? Question mark? Okay, Black Dragon Emperor. As Tang Mao was speaking, the light of the element suddenly appeared on the Black Dragon Emperor's body. Then, pieces of intact huge dragon scales floated out. Then it raised its head and spewed out a mouthful of flames. Although its dragon flame was sealed, it could still erupt in a small mouthful. Chapter 549, Apis's Change. As the flames erupted, the huge dragon scales continued to shrink. Tang Mao looked at Apis and asked, why is it self-harming? Are you really stupid or just pretending to be stupid? Apis looked at Tang Mao with contempt and then explained, this is the strange scale on the Black Dragon. Its ordinary dragon scales have extremely amazing defense. After this strange scale is refined by its dragon flame, if you find the top forger in your human world to forge it, then you will have a top magic tool. Wearing it is a real emperor level demon attack, and it can block it for you. Giving this thing to Tang Mao is enough to show how grateful the Black Dragon Emperor is to him. Tang Mao pointed at Norman with some embarrassment and said, speaking of which, he is the one who really contributed. I just sneak attacked at the end. Apis nodded and said, this is another request of the Black Dragon. I hope you can save him. Tang Mao understood it as soon as he heard it. It turned out that the Black Dragon Emperor was afraid that he would be left here by Norman. It is very strong, but it has no healing ability, so he wants to ask for help from me. Of course, being able to offer its exotic scales was already a huge gain. Such a large dragon scale is more than enough to make a set of armor magic tools. This time he really made a profit. Not only did he get the friendly treatment of the Black Dragon Emperor, but he also got the best armor magic tools materials. Others may not encounter monarch level demons very often, but since he reached the high level, monarchs are almost common. After reaching the super level, those who are not supreme monarchs seem to be a bit unpresentable. The ice defense is good, and with the snow girl, even some supreme monarchs who are restrained by the attributes can't hurt him. However, those who are not restrained can easily break the defense. The black snake magic armor is very powerful in anti-poison, but if it is to defend against elemental magic bombardment, it is impossible. And the gift of the Black Dragon Emperor is obviously very important to him. Hoo hoo. However, the situation of the Black Dragon Emperor seems to be more serious than expected. When melting the exotic scales, it suddenly has some weakness. The flames were intermittent. In the end, the dragon flames were gone. The Black Dragon Emperor felt that he had been completely blocked. He wanted to get angry, but this place had been severely destroyed once. In the end, he just lowered his huge head and explained to Apis. Its body is full of fly demon eggs, which makes it unable to use dragon flames. Apis looked at Tang Mao and explained. Ask the Black Dragon Emperor if we can help him solve it. Although he couldn't do it himself, he could go in and help him clean it up with his huge body and huge head. Of course, the premise is that this big guy doesn't digest it. Apis paused, turned back to look at the Black Dragon and told it. After hearing what Apis said, the Black Dragon Emperor roared a few more times. Going in can indeed clear the magic flies in its throat, but after dealing with them, dragon flames will be spewed out, which it cannot control. Unless you can withstand the impact of dragon flames, it does not recommend you to go in. However, it still expresses its gratitude to you. Upon hearing the impact of dragon flames, Tang Mao immediately became a little scared. Are you kidding? Can he resist this dragon flame? However, danger is naturally beneficial. The Black Dragon Emperor said that it can feel that there is a powerful creature in your body. If you can kill these magic flies, you can get its dragon source power from it. Apis looked at Tang Mao and said, "Dragon source power!" Exclamation mark. He didn't know what this was, but as soon as he heard the name, he knew that it was definitely a good thing. Anything related to dragons, how bad can it be? Just like the power of the totem, after Killin absorbed it, he directly crossed the barrier of the high-level thunder system and broke through to the super level. If he gets the dragon source power, maybe he will have a new system breakthrough. I'm really tempted. Since you told me this, does that mean you have a way to deal with Long Yan? Tang Mao said again. Apis is connected with his life. If she is not sure that she can keep herself alive, how could she tell him this? Unless she doesn't want to live, of course. Apis also nodded directly and then said, "Others may not be able to do it, but you have the Queen of Fire Element, Xiao Yanji. Yanji is the darling of the fire element, but this is Long Yan. Can it withstand it with its strength?" Tang Mao asked uncertainly. "Of course, you can't withstand the full power of dragon flames. But no one asked you to deal with all the magic flies." Apis looked at the Black Dragon Emperor and said, "You just need to make a hole for it. With the protection of Princess Yan, you just need to wait until all the dragon flames erupt, and then deal with the rest, right?" This sounds right, but even if you are next to it, the burning heat is not something that ordinary people can endure. However, before he could express his doubts, Apis said, "You have a fire element pet and 4 kinds of soul fire protection. At most, you will feel burnt, but you won't die. What are you afraid of?" "Apis, you are a little bit wrong today. How did you think of helping me advance?" Tang Mao asked in confusion. "You know, this little hoof doesn't cause trouble for me, but today he wants to help me improve my strength? This feels like the sun is in the wrong direction. HMPH, you won't cancel the contract. Since I have to follow you all the time, I naturally don't want my strength to be suppressed. Moreover, although you are a bit of a jerk, your strength is still recognized by this queen," Apis said lightly. Apis doesn't like to be contracted. Of course, any powerful demon will definitely not like to be contracted. But it's already like this, and Tang Mao is not only good to her in addition to taking advantage of her, she will naturally think about helping him improve his strength. After all, only when he becomes strong and stands at the top position, she can be considered truly safe. Apis can conclude that after the death of Queen Mother Medusa, the first thing her 2 sisters did was to find it and destroy her. Therefore, when there is no choice, it is to improve their own strength and Tang Mao's strength. In this way, there is really no chance to seize power in the future. They are all the orthodox blood of Medusa. How can she not be willing to be a queen? Chapter 550 Entering the Black Dragon. In the end, Apis succeeded in convincing Tang Mao. In order to have another system break through the super level, he thought that he should take a risk once. After all, with the contract in hand, this little snakeskin would not harm him at all. Unless she had lived enough, but obviously, it was not the case. After Tang Mao agreed, Apis told the Black Dragon again. Of course, the matter of absorbing the dragon source power was not what the Black Dragon Emperor said. It was just that Apis noticed that, since it could make Tang Mao advance, what's wrong with taking a risk? She also hopes to restore her strength, but if she wants to restore it, the premise is that Tang Mao must become stronger. Otherwise, I don't know when this damn contract suppression will be lost. Moreover, in this way, not only can you get the dragon source power of the Black Dragon, but you can also make it grateful, which is simply the best of both worlds. As for why she knew that Tang Mao had something that could absorb this kind of power, it was naturally because Apis saw it when Tang Mao was killing monsters in the Sahara Desert. After all, it was a contract, and Apis obviously had nothing to say here. She is a demon who will never betray herself. After hearing what Apis said about helping, the Black Dragon Emperor naturally had no doubts, but he did not want to hurt Tang Mao and Apis. After all, without their help, he might be a slave under someone else's feet. But after seeing that Apis insisted on helping and said that they would be fine, the Black Dragon Emperor agreed. Of course, he could not close his mouth during this period, and he had to keep it open, otherwise the corrosion would be quite serious. After both sides agreed, Yanji possessed him, and Apis held him in his arms. Tang Mao took her to the throat of the Black Dragon Emperor. The Black Dragon Emperor was indeed too huge. Even after entering, he had to fly for a while before he could see the large number of huge magic flies. Although this group of magic flies did not seem to have much killing power, they blocked its throat tightly. Use your flames to burn them to death. Remember to absorb the dragon source power here immediately when they are killed. After entering here, Apis covered her nose and said, "Because of these magic flies, the smell here is extremely disgusting." Tang Mao couldn't stand it for a long time, but thinking of what Apis said, he still did it according to her, just aimed at a place next to it, and drew the fire constellation. The moment the Hellfire Dragon rushed out, it directly hit the huge body of the magic fly. The burning of the 4 kinds of soul fire, the crowded magic flies were instantly ignited, and then began to turn into ashes. This was almost much simpler than he imagined, but the magic flies died, but he did not get the power he imagined. Tang Mao looked at Apis in confusion, and Apis said, "Continue, impact this hole." Although he wanted to ask, "What is this?" but looking at the way Apis commanded, he knew that this snake woman would not tell him. However, the same sentence, the two of them belonged to the same life. He believed that she would not harm him, so he continued to use the flame to melt the crowded magic flies according to what she said. Under the roasting of the flame, many magic flies were blasted into pieces. However, there were too many magic flies, and I don't know how Sulu got this thing. Question mark? Of course, it is normal to have more. After all, if there were not so many magic flies, how could the dragon flame of the Black Dragon Emperor be completely blocked? The energy shells of flames continued to explode towards the pile of magic flies. However, while destroying some of them, it was necessary to be careful not to hurt the ones next to them. There was no way. If there were no magic flies left, what would happen to Yanji when the dragon flames were sprayed out? You have to know that this is the dragon breath that can kill a team of superclass mages in one breath. Even the forbidden spell mages may not be able to resist it. Boom. Boom. The flames continued to burn, and the magic energy was also consumed rapidly. In addition to the output of the fire system, he had almost no way to use any other means. After all, only the flames would not cause serious damage to the Black Dragon Emperor. If it was replaced by thunder, with Tang Mao's thunder of destruction, the Black Dragon Emperor would also suffer serious injuries if it continued to bombard in this situation. Moreover, as long as it couldn't bear the pain and closed its mouth, Tang Mao would be finished. Even if it was demonized, it would be extremely difficult to rush out of its body. If it weren't for this breath of dragon's breath, it would be fine. But once this dragon's breath that couldn't be released was sprayed out, he would have no choice but to die. After half a day, the magic fly on that side was finally blasted to the bottom. When the magic fly next to it was about to continue to absorb the dragon source power to become huge, Apis hurriedly said, "Quick, use your vessel to absorb." Tang Mao didn't doubt him. Although he didn't know what to absorb, he still awakened the Killer Jade at the first time. Unlike him who was confused, Killer Jade seemed to have found something good. A stream of rich power suddenly poured into the jade, and those magic flies that were about to grow stopped completely. "Quick, retreat." At this time, Apis suddenly shouted, and Tang Mao didn't care about being excited. After all, at this time, it was easy to lose his life if he was not careful. Immediately, the 6 wings opened, hugged the softness of Apis, and jumped up and retreated from here. Although Apis was very unhappy that Tang Mao was still trying to take advantage of him, he didn't have the courage to do anything. He just used the magic of the earth system to condense a sharp long thorn. When the two of them were flying, he threw it out with all his strength. Puff. When he rushed out of the pile of magic flies, he heard a huge sound, and then, the feeling of being in the scorching sun swept over his body? Question mark? This temperature, I'm afraid that even the most terrifying magma he has seen can't be compared, right? Boom boom, and the next moment, there was a boiling sound of fire below. Tang Mao originally wanted to fly out in one breath. Even if he came in again, it would be better than staying here and being roasted by the fire. But Apis stopped him again and asked him to hide in the thick pile of magic flies. When he was about to say something, the dragon flames broke out directly from the place that he had opened before! Exclamation mark. Fortunately, Tang Mao was fast enough, otherwise, he would not feel hot. This impact force, it is estimated that it could take his life, right? End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.